Good morning and welcome to the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public meeting and public hearing of October 28th, 2025. We're going to begin by taking attendance, and I'm going to ask our General Counsel, Mark Silverman, to call the roll.
Vice Chair Master,
Here.
Commissioner Chen, Commissioner Chu,
Here.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Here.
Mr. Goldblum, Commissioner Cumbe, Mr. Jefferson, Commissioner Mahan, Commissioner Wilder.
Okay. Before we start, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Thompson to introduce a new staff member.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'm excited to introduce today Elizabeth Lee, who is filling the role of Intergovernmental and Community Affairs Associate. She's filling the role previously held by Gregory Calla, who left us in January, and we're really excited to have her on the team. She'll serve as the agency's primary liaison to the city's community boards, help organize testimony for these public hearings, and join me as we read the public's testimony throughout the day. And so I'd like to join everyone in offering Elizabeth a big welcome.
Yeah. Welcome, Elizabeth. We're happy to have you. This meeting is being held in our hearing room at 253 Broadway on the second floor. It is also being held via Zoom and live streamed on our YouTube channel for anyone who would like to participate remotely. We're going to begin with a public meeting agenda for applications which have been read into the public hearing. And then we're going to move to public hearing for new applications on our designated properties. Now I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Preservation, Corey Harala.
Thank you, Vice Chair Master. We'll start today's Preservation Department public meeting agenda with public meeting item number 1. That's LPC 25-11313, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1520, Lot 101, 1143 Park Avenue in the expanded Carnegie Hill Historic District. This is a row house designed by John Sullivan and built in 1884 to 85 and altered by Emery Roth in 1924. The application is to modify the front facade, install a cornice, and construct rooftop and rear yard additions. This was read into the record at the public hearing of October 21st, 2025, but the application was not presented and public testimony will be taken this morning. Now turn it over to the applicant after we open the proceedings.
Okay, let's go ahead and open the proceedings. Commissioner Wilder, would you make a motion to open the proceedings?
So moved.
Commissioner Cumbe, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is opened. The proceedings are open. The applicant may begin.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Michael Fahey with Fahey Architects. I will be presenting the proposed changes to 1143 Park Avenue. 1143 Park Avenue is a mixed-use building with a commercial ground floor and a single-family residence located on the east side of Park Avenue, just north of the northeast corner of East 91st Street and Park Avenue in the expanded Carnegie Hill Historic District. Since our presentation to Community Board number 8 on September 15th, our design has been modified to address their comments. For today's presentation, the areas that we are asking for your approval are on the change to the window moldings on the 3rd and 4th floor, similar to that of 1147 Park Avenue, increase the size of the entablature at the top of the front facade closer to the original size prior to the 1924 Emery Roth renovation, adding a 5th story addition setback 16 feet from the front facade, enclose the existing rear 4th floor roof wood balcony, thus extending the 4th and 5th floors 4 feet east into the rear yard while not decreasing the open space of the property. I'd like to talk a bit about the historical context of the property. 1143 Park Avenue was developed in 1884 and 1885 by John Sullivan. It was one of 4 row houses, each on a 16.5-foot by 70-foot lot. In the early part of the 20th century, 1143 Park was one of 3 out of the 4 row houses renovated by Emery Roth in a modern classical design with a limestone facade. In this aerial view of the existing conditions, 1143 is the second building left of the corner. There has not been any additions above the fourth story, while the other three properties all have fifth floor additions. As well, there are three views from the roof, one looking east to the Brick Presbyterian Church, and the other two looking west to the rear yard. On this slide, you can see other views in the area and the area of the building. The first looking at the alley between 1141 Park and 103 East 91st Street, as well as three views from the second floor roof at the rear of 1143 Park Avenue. Here is a photo of today of 4 townhouses. As I stated earlier, 3 of the current 4 townhouses were renovated in the early part of the 20th century. From published literature, 1147 Park Avenue is thought to be the closest to the original row house designed by John Sullivan. In this slide from the 1929 historic photos, you can see the Roth renovations individually define the row house buildings to the townhouses that we see today. Here are 3 Sanborn maps before you to illustrate the evolution of the 4 townhouses from 1896 to 1939. In 1896, on the left side, the Sanborn map, the original 4 row houses, each located on a 70-foot lot with a 25-foot rear yard setback. In the center, in the 1911 map, 1143 has added a 2-story rear yard addition, occupying the total lot. And in the 1939 Sanborn map, you can see that 1145 and 1149 both added 4-story additions onto the rear of their respective properties. On this current conditions on this block plan, it show that 1143 here has added in 2004 a 3rd floor rear yard greenhouse along with a 4th floor rear yard roofed wood balcony. 1141, 1145, 1147, and 1149 all have 5th floor additions. In our proposed block plan illustrated here is our addition to the rear yard expansion of 1143. As well, the recently approved expansion of their 5th floor and rear yard of 1149 Park Avenue. I'd like to talk a bit about the design of the project. The additions and expansion of 1143 Park Avenue is a 517 square foot by 10-foot high rooftop addition. The addition is set back 16 feet off the front facade to decrease the visibility of Park Avenue in response to the comments from the Community Board 8 meeting. The addition also has a shed roof with a skylight within the first 11 feet to decrease the exposure to the addition to Park Avenue. We are extending the Neo-Greco front facade entablature 2 feet to what we believe was the original cornice height when the building was first developed by Sullivan. We're adding a masonry style trim on and sills at the 3rd and 4th floor, similar to 1147 Park, and we'll paint all the windows and the brick molds and sashes the approved LPC black. On the 4th and 5th floor rear extension will not surpass the former exterior wood balcony at the 4th floor, and the extension will not be visible by the adjacent properties and will not decrease the open space of the rear yard. This sheet shows front and rear elevations comparing the existing and the proposed elevations. At the first floor, the door and awning changes will be handled at an LPC staff level. We're replacing the existing cornice with a new larger entablature in line with the side piers at the north and south sides of the parapet. Here, as you can see here. We believe the piers are the remains of the original entablature by Sullivan in 1884. At the third and fourth floors, we will be adding a pronounced masonry trim and extended sills with small sill brackets at the windows that mimic the design of 1147 Park. We feel that this will balance the visual weight of the increased entablature size added at the top of the facade. The addition's setback front facade will mimic, this portion here will mimic the design of the second floor facade and will be finished the same. At the rear of the building, we are expanding 4 feet to the edge of the existing balcony and adding a new Juliet balcony at the 4th floor bedroom, as well as new French style casements and a Neo-Greco style classical oculus window at the 5th floor bedroom. Looking closer at the upper portion of the front facade, in rendering number 1, you can see that the new added cornice and Jeffersonian corbels and shaker style frieze doubles as a 42-inch parapet for the new roof garden with the addition of the 16-foot the addition set back 16 feet. In rendering number 2, we mimicked Emery Roth's second level limestone molding design, as well as we are installing new exterior Marvin Elevate sliding patio width doors, similar in design to the second floor French casement windows. The shed roof is made, that you can see above here, is made up of a Siplast white EPDM single ply roofing membrane with a flush skylight. This slide shows the plans with the areas highlighted in yellow showing the changes to the property. So the first floor, this is the 4th floor enclosure of the existing wood balcony, the 5th floor addition with the new established cornice, and this is the roof of the 5th floor. Here we can see the existing section of the building along with the proposed section, and here highlighted in yellow with the new entablature here, cornice, the addition setback 16 feet, the shed roof. This is the extension at the rear of the building, and there's a new elevator going into the building as well. This base elevation shows the existing Emery Roth facade in the context with the other townhouses, as well as 1141 Park Avenue. In this slide, on the front elevation, we believe that the proposed design is aligned with the classical style shown in the original row houses, as well as you can see the new vertical extension here does not exceed the neighboring extensions in height. In this slide, we have 3D renderings showing the existing building as it is and the proposed renovation with the 3rd and 4th floor window surrounds, as well as the setback, the new addition on the 5th floor. In this rear facade at 3D, you can see the existing rear facade with the wood balcony, as well as the extended enclosed rear facade with the Juliet balcony, the two casement windows, and the oculus. Let me go back, I'm sorry. You can always also see that the rear of the building is sandwiched between 1145, 1141, as well as 103 East 91st Street. So there's no exposure. You can't see any part of this building from other than within the 1143 property. This slide here shows our line of sight diagram from the farthest point of Park Avenue at the Brick Presbyterian Church. Due to the raised cornice, the entablature hides all but 6 inches of the proposed addition. The slope of the proposed shed roof is less than the sightline angle of inclination, so it won't be visible from the street. And as well, to conclude our presentation, we wanted to share photos of our mock-up. It's the enlarged photo in the lower right-hand corner shows the addition is slightly visible here from the Brick Presbyterian Church, and it's the only one. From the other angles, you cannot see the addition whatsoever, other than you see the expanded entablature. Thank you for your time, and if there are any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you. Commissioners, does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Jefferson?
Was the wood balcony original to the building?
No, it was not original. We believe it was added in 2004.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so this item was read into the public hearing, public records. So, and we didn't have the opportunity to take testimony. So I'm going to note that there's nobody here that would like to testify. I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Thompson to see if we have any remote testimony.
Those joining us via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function, after which you'll be promoted to panelist. We ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Our first speaker will be Lo Vanderval.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Thank you. My name is Lo Vanderval, and I'm speaking on behalf of Carnegie Hill Neighbors. We want to thank the sponsors of this very fine and sensitive restoration. Carnegie Hill Neighbors is particularly pleased with the revisions made for the front facade and the penthouse of 1143 Park Avenue. This is a major revision from what was presented at Community Board 8. No longer will the row of penthouse windows be visible from the sidewalk across Park Avenue. A combination of lowering the roof and windows and the new parapet have made this possible. We wish to express our profound appreciation to the owners, Orla Coleman and Ricky Tata, for working with Carnegie Hill Neighbors to make these salutary adjustments possible. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker will be Friends of the Upper East Side.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Zeynep Turan, and I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side. This row house is the last of 4 on this distinctive Carnegie Hill block to receive a rooftop addition, and Friends Preservation Committee appreciates the effort to set it back 16 feet from Park Avenue to help minimize visibility. However, we find the proposed massing awkward and out of character with the block. A setback attic floor, similar to what the Commission approved at 1149 Park Avenue, would be more appropriate contextually, as it aligns with the historic character of the building. Additionally, elements such as the sliding doors on the 5th floor and the rooftop skylight are incongruous with the building scale, rhythm, and overall architectural language. Although these row houses were originally designed in the neo-Gothic style, they have been significantly altered since the 1880s. The proposed details, including the front cornice, window stools and aprons, and especially the rear fenestration pattern and oculus, feel out of sync with the building's architectural identity. We urge the applicant to reconsider the design with a more cohesive and simplified architectural language for both the front and rear facades, one that restores and reinforces the building's modern classical character as imagined by Emery Roth in the 1920s. Thank you, Commissioners.
Anyone else joining us via Zoom who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 8 recommends denial.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to respond to any of those comments?
Yes, we looked at we considered the 3 renovations that Roth did. And the first 2, which were 1149 and 1145, we thought were quite beautiful and well tailored. The original design from Sullivan, we thought was heavy-handed, and 1147 has a lot of those elements have been reduced in size since the original development. But what we thought would be the best is that if we had to hide the addition, which elevating, we would capture what the original height would be, and we would install a cornice, maybe not as robust or with as much zeal as Sullivan proposed in his original row houses, but to anchor that, we saw that, or to basically support that, we saw that the surrounds around the 2nd and 3rd floors were necessary because it was in the original Roth design. We found that the cornice was for the lack of a better word, wasn't successful in its scale. And we thought that it needed to be increased regardless. But to support that, we added the surrounds. Originally, we didn't have it, and then we said, you need to balance out the front facade. As far as the addition, there was we mimicked the parts of the front facade of the 2nd floor that was done by Roth, and we basically mirrored the French casement window design style, as well as in regards to the oculus on the back. The oculus was generated or was thought about as from an interior perspective, since it will not be viewed by anybody other than the interior. And the location of the oculus is over the headboard of the bed in that bedroom, and the 2 casement windows flank the bed. So we thought that the oculus was the most appropriate scale-wise and also design-wise from an interior perspective, as well as an exterior perspective. However, it can't be seen, but especially from an interior, we thought it'd be actually quite nice to have a circular window and the light coming in the morning for the owners.
Great. Thank you so much. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Commissioner Ginsburg?
Besides saying you think 1147 is close to the original, do you have any documentation of what the original building looked like?
The only documentation we have is the pictures from the 1929 photo, as well as some documentation literature that I believe is on the Carnegie Hill Historic website, saying that 1147 is the closest to the original design. Other than that, there's no other documentation that I have.
And this photo doesn't tell us what 1143 looked like. It just may be more accurate of 1147.
Well, the 1143, since there were 4 row houses, we expect that, I suspect that Sullivan developed them all in the same style. And then 30 years later, Roth came around and he did 1149. He changed that facade, 1145, and then in 1924, 1143.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's go ahead and close the proceedings. Commissioner Goldblum, would you make a motion to close the proceedings?
So moved.
Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that?
So second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the proceedings are closed. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to start this discussion?
Yes, and let me go to my notes here. So my first comment is, which was tied to the question I just asked, is we don't really know what the building looked like originally. We have an idea based on what another building looks like, but we don't have any documentation of this. I would also note that Emery Roth is a major architect. And so this is an issue we get often where a building was built at one point, was then renovated a long time ago, but often by somebody of note. And that, then the question is, what do you go back to? Or do you go back to or keep it? And my general inclination is you don't mess with what you have because it's an important building. And I also find that the renovation is sort of a bit of this and a bit of that, because I don't think the ground and second floor look like what it does today before the Emery Roth renovation, and that isn't changing that much. I appreciate and can accept the change in the cornice, which helps block the rooftop addition, which in the front I think is acceptable. In the rear, I have sort of 2 comments, and I'm going to be interested what my fellow commissioners say. Typically, we want to keep the top floor of an existing building there. You're adding 3 feet and in effect blocking the top floor. So I think we should look at pulling that addition back 3 feet. You could potentially on the floor below add a 3-foot addition because we often accept that. I would also say that I think that round window is totally out of place. And that rear facade can be worked on, but that is similar. So but in general, I think the rooftop addition from the front is fine with the added cornice, but I would leave the rest of the front as is. And I would reduce the rear addition, at least for the top floor, to keep the existing facade exposed. But again, we'll look forward to hearing what my fellow commissioners say. And the other thing I'd add is I realize you made modifications after the community board, but it's hard for us to understand those modifications since I would have liked to have seen an appendix with the original drawings so I could understand what you did in response to what the community board said, because here you described it, which I appreciate, but it would be good to have it documented. Thank you.
Just wanted to note one thing before we continue the discussion. The property at 1149 Park Avenue, which is labeled on the diagrams here. The commission did recently approve a full height rear addition and rooftop addition on that property and had a very similar discussion based on the points that Commissioner Ginsburg just raised. I don't remember if it was unanimous, but the commission did approve it because the context in this room already had the two full height additions next door to it.
And if my fellow commissioners feel the rear addition is fine, I can live with that. I'm just sort of stating what our normal rules would be. Thank you.
Okay, let's go around to Commissioner Wilder.
Good morning. So looking at the original or current facade, I think I can't say that I think I prefer the current design of the windows as opposed to what's being proposed with the window surround. In terms of the cornice and parapet, I think I like the extension or the increased height of the parapet, which also allows you to block the rooftop addition. However, I do kind of favor the original design of the cornice. So I don't know if you could keep that original or come up with some design that's a little more in scale with what's existing versus the newer corners. And then in terms of the rear, I don't think I love the Oculus window. However, I do understand that it's not visible, so I won't make too much of a big deal about it. And because the other buildings also have the full height rooftop additions, then I don't have a problem with it as well. Yeah, so those are my comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Ikembe?
Yes. Looking at the facade, I do enjoy how it presents itself presently, and I'm in agreement that not much alteration to it is really necessary. I can understand beefing up the cornice a bit and raising the parapet, especially to hide the rooftop addition a bit more. I think that's a good strategy. As for the rear addition, I'm actually okay with it based on the context of what's happening around it. Again, as for the Oculus window, I'm not a fan of it as well, but it is completely blocked and it's not visible.
I'm sorry, can I get some clarification on the front facade? Are you saying that you're okay with it as presented?
I guess the inclusion of the window surrounds, I'm not so sure about that.
Okay, you don't like the window surround?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I guess the cornice itself, it should just be worked at to make sure its design is agreeable with what's already presented.
Okay.
And I believe that can be done at staff level.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, thanks. So I think in terms of what's being proposed, I do appreciate that the addition to the historic townhouse is clear and indistinguishable. In terms of mass, I think it's appropriate considering the context and the fact that the neighboring townhouses have all been built out significantly from their original inception mass. And therefore that minor extension, I think I'm okay with. So in terms of the mass of the addition, I don't have an issue with. In terms of the elevation of the rear, because it is so hard to see essentially in a small well, I'm okay with as well. In terms of the front facade, I do feel that what is there now, regardless of what was originally there, because of the great changes and renovation to the townhouses through time, what I see existing on this block is actually a very nice collection of townhouses that do have distinct styles, each one, and do represent different masses in terms of property width and height. It's a nice mix. So slight revision to the facade I am comfortable with, but I do feel that what's been proposed is a little too much change. I don't feel that the window surrounds are necessary. The character of the existing facade windows, I think, work well with the scale of the house. The cornice, I can see, is beneficial in masking the addition above. In terms of facade height, I think it's appropriate, but I do think that the style that's being proposed seems like a big departure from what's there. I would like the applicant to work with the staff on better defining what that cornice facade elevation looks like. But in general, with the height, I feel that it is appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
Yeah, I must commend the architect because the thinking of the project was very clear as they proposed it. And in terms of the front facade, I thought it was okay. Oh, in terms of the front facade, I thought it was, I could approve it. I thought the cornice made sense to me and with the right proportion. The rear facade, my concern was the original volume. What was that? And I wanted to make sure that we kept the original volume, or that was an issue. And at the end, I didn't quite understand. I would prefer to keep the original volume. And I do not mind the circular cutout in the back. But if we push it back, we can't have the circle. We have to keep the original volume.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
Thanks. I agree with the general tenor of the comments that seem to trend in the direction of being more conservative with the front facade. I think that's the appropriate choice. Although in this district, we've approved plenty of rather radical remakings of facades. Usually they are not facades that have a lot of intact detail from subsequent renovations. Often they're stripped or they're in poor shape. That's not been proposed. That's not been said here. So I think that a conservative approach is a better way to go. But I do think that allowing for some modifications for hiding the, raising the parapet, et cetera, are acceptable. I think the rooftop addition per se is acceptable. I agree with Mark's comments, though, that the reason I, anyway, always oppose full height additions that kind of subsume the entire volume of the building at the back is because I think one of our prerogatives here is to maintain the volume expression of the building. And we obviously do that with the front facade and with the cornice at the front facade, and requiring a setback at the roof to distinguish any rooftop additions from the original volume. That's the intention of the rear facade. That's the intention of the maintenance of the top floor of the rear facade as well, and the setting back 3 to 5 feet of any rooftop additions. I don't see a compelling reason here to vary that view. It's true that the context supports a full height rear yard addition, but I don't see that as the reason for opposing it or the sole reason for opposing it. So I agree with Mark on that. I do think that the round window is a bit peculiar, but we've allowed for much more peculiar things to go up in rear yards. And I think it's one of those things where aesthetics versus historic appropriateness. I don't think it's historically inappropriate to have that weird window, but, you know, I might not have done it, but that's a personal choice.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I found that the Commissioner Ginsburg's earlier comment was very, very revealing in the sense that this is what we often grapple with, you know, given that the island's several hundred years of history, whether 200 years or whatever. At what point do you go back to that moment? And I think this is a case here, whether Emery Roth or Sullivan, and I tend to agree with the commissioner's comment here that as much as possible, we should be conservative in this instance. And no problem with raising the parapet height to, you know, to sort of help the addition on the rooftop. I think the rooftop is set back sufficiently on the front. And I agree with Commissioner Stephen Chu's comment about whether the corners need to work with the staff a little bit about helping to modify. I think there's something that could be refined there. As to the back, you know, since it's not visible and I got delayed by the train by a few minutes, so I didn't get to hear that portion of the presentation. So I would defer to the rest of the staff to decide on the back.
Commissioner Chen, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to allow the full height addition, you may be the deciding vote. So you might, like, if you have any questions, you know, we'd be happy to. Okay, thank you.
Just to summarize, I think that we're going to ask for the vote on here is, it seems there may be enough commissioners that are in support of the full height rear addition and the rooftop addition. However, want to see the oculus window at the top of the rear facade removed and standardized in terms of fenestration, and also at the front facade to remove the sills under the brackets, keep that fenestration as is, and to work with staff to refine raising the parapet and doing a conservative sort of redesign of that cornice to be in keeping with the design of the facade as it exists today.
Great. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you read that motion?
Yes. With regards to LPC 25-11313, 1143 Park Avenue, expanded Carnegie Hill Historic District, a row house designed by John Sullivan, built 1884-85, and altered by Emery Roth in 1924. Application is to modify the front facade, install cornice, and construct rooftop and rear yard addition. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the expanded Carnegie Hill Historic District. I also note that the Park Avenue facade was modernized with classically inspired elements in the early 20th century. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the Park Avenue facade was altered over time, including the insertion of a two-story commercial storefront. The removal of ornament at the upper floors, therefore raised parapet, and replacing the existing cornice with a taller painted wood cornice with a different design will be in keeping with the history of the change of this facade. That the proposed rooftop addition will only be minimally visible over the raised cornice from Park Avenue in the context of the taller background building and other rooftop accretions. That the simple massing and off-white stucco cladding of the street facade portion of the rooftop addition will be consistent with alterations additions historically found at buildings of this type, style, and age, that the work of the rear of the building will not be visible from any public thoroughfare, that the building is separated from the row by an existing full-height L to the north and is next to a deeper corner building to the south. Therefore, the demolition of the rear facade and construction of a full-height rear addition will not diminish its relationship to the other buildings in a row. That the existing rear yard addition extends to the rear lot line. Therefore, the proposed addition will not further diminishes the block's central green space. That the design and materiality of the rear yard addition, featuring stucco cladding, single light windows and doors, and metal railing, will be in keeping with the residential scale and character and other buildings in the block. However, I find that the addition of window bracket sill and neo-Greek inspired design of the proposed cornice does not relate well to the classical style elements of this restrained facade, and the result is awkward mix of styles on the facade, and that on the rear facade, the oculus window is out of place. Therefore, I recommend, working with staff, that the sills brackets be removed, that the existing cornice design, the design of the new cornice with existing classical features be studied and refined in consultation with staff, and the oculus window is replaced by a more traditional window.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen, can you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. And Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Nope.
Commissioner Ikwembe,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
7 in favor and 1 opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you. So that's been approved with modifications. Please continue to work with staff. Okay, thanks. Let's move to the next item.
Next item is public meeting item number 2, LPC 25-12461. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1914, Lot 146, 132 West 130th Street, the Central Harlem West 130 to 132nd Street Historic District. This is currently a vacant lot, and the application is to construct a new building. This was read into the record at the public hearing of September 30th, 2025. No presentation was given at that time, and public testimony will be taken today for the first time. The applicant will present the proposal after we open the proceedings.
Commissioner Jefferson, can you please make a motion to open the proceedings?
So moved.
Commissioner Chu, would you second that?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the proceedings are now open. Oh, I'd also note that Commissioner Goldblum is recused from this item.
Good morning. John Field from Building Studio Architects, presenting 132 West 130th Street in the Central Harlem Historic District on behalf of ownership. This is a new building on the south side of 130th Street between Malcolm X Boulevard and 7th Avenue. The original building on this parcel was demolished in 2020 by emergency declaration. The site throughout the years shows the row of houses with existing conditions. Our vacant site is on the right. The row was built in 1885, 2 pairs of twin facades. Our facade is 132, which you see here in disrepair before it was demolished. We are proposing a 2-family reconstruction in the spirit of the original facade, with a stoop to match the former twin to the left and detailing consistent with the row. In section, there is a penthouse set back and not visible from the street. The penthouse is concealed with the cornice that acts as a parapet for the roof terrace. The existing street front with a rendered elevation of our proposal. This will be a 3-coat stucco over CMU facade with black 2/2 aluminum clad pellet traditional windows. Views from the west show our facade with 2 windows, and views from the east show our facade again with 2 windows and the neighboring facades with the tripartite configuration. At the rear of the property, the block is primarily residential. The building is comparable in height with its context and its neighbors. Looking closely at the massing in the rear, there are a number of the original two-story tail additions. We are aligning our rear wall of the building with the neighboring row. We are extending the lower 2 stories out to match the tails of the adjacent buildings. Zooming in further, you see the alignments. Another section showing the penthouse setback concealed by the parapet. At the rear, mock-up rendering of our alignments. The rear facade of the building is brick. It will be open iron railing. The windows and window door fenestration at the terrace match the neighbors. Our materials, stucco, black clad windows, black painted metal, and matching ornamentation. I'm going to pause here. There's an appendix that has the detailing at great length for the details of the building proposed. Are there any questions?
Great. Thank you for keeping it short. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Chu.
Sorry if I missed this, but is it essentially a reproduction of what was there?
It is essentially a reproduction of what was there, save one. It is essentially a reproduction of what was there. The difference between our building and the one to the left, which is its twin, would be the altered first floor window on the building to the left. That's not original detail. The original detail is from our buildings to the right, which is what we're using.
Oh,
That's
I
something
see.
we worked on with staff.
The one on the left has been altered?
The one on the left has been altered. And
Okay.
that was worked on carefully with staff.
Okay.
And really, the alteration is that those, the surrounds, the two side elements were widened quite a
Yes,
bit.
I can
from
see
the
that.
original condition on the left. So what's being proposed is actually the accurate condition.
This rendering is corrected. The earlier renderings show a wider surround
Okay.
because we weren't able to correct them.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, Commissioner Chen?
Just want to commend the applicant for restoring not only your facade, but to fit in. Very nicely done.
Thank you.
Great. So looking at the room, we don't have anybody here to testify on this item. So I'm going to ask Stephen Thompson if there's any remote testimony.
Those joining us via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. Our first speaker will be Claudette Brady. You'll be promoted to panelist, after which we ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Ms. Brady, you may unmute yourself and speak. I'm confirming that you've been selected as a panelist. I see you on that list. It looks like
Stephen, can you hear me?
unmuted. Yes,
I-
we can now hear you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Claudette Brady. I am Executive Director of Save Harlem Now. Save Harlem Now commends the applicant and their design team for their commitment to faithfully replicating the historic character of the building that once stood at 132 West 130th Street, originally part of a road designed by Cleverton and Putzel in 1885. We recognize the importance of this reconstruction within the Central Harlem West 130th, 132nd Street Historic District, and we appreciate the thoughtful effort to replicate the cornice, windows, facade materials and ornamental details to restore the rhythm of this historic streetscape. That said, we do have an objection and a recommendation for refinement. We object to the proposed use of pipe rails at the front stoop. We recommend that LPC staff work with the applicant to revise the design of the entrance stoop at the front facade, which can be simplified by removing the pipe rails and raising the height of the replicated historic guardrails so that they meet the code required height by themselves without the need to be supplemented by an unsightly pipe rail. Also, although the proposed basement windows at the rear are not visible from the public way, the size, placement, and proportions are out of scale with the historic patterns. That they read as chunky and disrupt the relationship to the adjacent row house configurations. We recommend that LPC staff work with the applicants to refine these windows so that they better align with the typical window openings found in neighboring historic buildings. In summary, Save Harlem Now strongly supports the proposed overall direction and applauds the applicant's replication of the original building design with adjustments to the stoop railing, rear basement windows. We believe this proposal can fully achieve a balance between historic fidelity, safety, and contemporary use. We thank the Commission for this opportunity to comment and for its continued stewardship of Harlem's irreplaceable architecture and cultural heritage. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you. Anyone else joining us via Zoom who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. All right, seeing none, I'll note for the record that Victorian Society of New York recommends approval. Manhattan Community Board 10 offers mixed approval, suggesting a reconsideration of the pipe handrails for a historically appropriate option and raising the rails to meet accessibility code, and replacing the proposed parapet material and reduce the size of rear windows in line with surrounding homes.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to respond to any of the comments?
Well, I'll adjust the pipe rail at the front. That's something else we've worked on with staff. We are proposing a reproduction cast railing, which is very massive, very heavy visually, and also very low. And inside of that, we are proposing a pipe rail to meet code safety standards. That pipe rail is very minimal visually in relation to the cast railing.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Commissioner Chu?
Is that revision not represented here? It's different.
It may not be represented well here. And I don't believe we have it in our oblique rendering, sorry. On the wrong way.
Yeah, oh, you passed it.
So our railing is inside of what is basically a foot lower cast.
John, you just want to describe it. So you're restoring the historic heavy balustrade with the cast material, and then these are secondary handrails, thin pipes that are set inside on the steps, and I think that is what you see.
And the objection is to that thin pipe rail that is inside, which is code height.
Right.
We had looked at actually doing that on top of the cast rail, but it did more harm than good. It intersected with the building awkwardly. It intersected with that newel post awkwardly.
Okay. So it just.
And raising that casting and everything just doesn't work with the neighboring one, which is original.
And the supports for the handrail are bottom and top only, or do they
Support
mount
for the
bracket?
handrail are bottom and top only.
Okay, so they don't attach to the cast
Correct.
iron. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and close the proceedings. Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the proceedings?
So moved.
Commissioner Ginsburg, can you second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the proceedings are closed. Commissioner Ikembe, would you like to start this discussion?
Sure. I guess first of all, I guess I truly appreciate the want to sustain the quality of the neighborhood itself. I truly appreciate that. I know there are times where there's many things you may want to do, but this seems to be a very responsible response to the infilling of this block. Overall, I like the rigor that was placed in restoring this building. I took a look in the appendix, looking at the details. I can see a lot of work was done to maintain what was actually there in the beginning. Overall, I truly don't have any issue. I'm okay with the rear facade and its modifications, slight modifications, I would say at that. But the one thing now that it's been brought to my attention is that front rail. And I'm trying to see potentially how to resolve that. I'm sure that many options have already been looked at. But I don't know, maybe another try should be done with it. But I'll leave that to my fellow commissioners to
Great,
bond about.
thank you so much. Commissioner Wilder?
Yeah, I agree. I think the applicant has done a pretty good job of restoring the rhythm and character of the block by infilling this lot that was vacant. I think keep it sure I am okay with the overall project and the modifications that have been made at the rear or the design at the rear. However, yeah, I am stuck on the pipe rail at the front. I think as small as it is, it detracts from a very nice project. And I think, yeah, I think the applicant should work with staff to try to figure out a better solution.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
So I can approve this and find this, what about, okay. Find this appropriate, although and I think the railing at the top is a solution that keeps the cornices aligned, because otherwise you might have to raise the cornice. So one can work with staff a bit, but in general, I think the railing is fine. I would add that in general, I would prefer to see something that was different and reflected the fact that this wasn't built 100 years ago, it was built today. However, in our definition of appropriate, what is being proposed is appropriate, so I can approve this.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I agree. I think the applicant has done a fine job here. I think I know they struggle with the pipe rail, and I do not know what the answer is here, or the ins and outs on the thing. The suggestion to it on top, where it meets the I do not know whether that works or not, but if the applicant and the staff think if there's another way, go for it.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson?
In terms of urban ideas, the idea of replicating something to make unity makes sense. And I can appreciate that. I think this works here. I wish it wasn't like 5 buildings. I wish it was 10. I think at that concept it works. It's appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, and I tend to agree with Mark's comment here in general. When I see this proposal, the questions that come to mind are precedent versus evolution. These are discussions that we've had in the past. Generally, I would, I guess I would prefer something that was designed that was compatible with the historic context rather than an outright reproduction. It wasn't built 100 years ago, it was built today. However, I think this is one proposal option that I do think is appropriate, however. And in fact, this piece was demolished only, what, 4 or 5 years ago, pretty recently, and we know exactly what was there. But to that point, I do think that this discussion that we seem to have had about the handrail, my thought there is, I think it can be revised so that it doesn't feel like it was the historic and then a new handrail was placed on it. To me, that starts to get a little odd. It's a new building. It has a new handrail. Yes, it desires to be in keeping with historic context and the original fabric, but it is not historic. Therefore, I do think it can be simplified with the style intention of being the historic style.
Thank you. Commissioner Kumbay, would you like to read the motion, adding that they should work with staff on the details of the pipe railing to come up with a solution?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. In the matter of LPC 25-12461, 132 West 130th Street, Central Harlem, West 130th, 132nd Street, Historic District. This application is to construct a new building. I note that the original building on this now vacant lot was one of 4 Neo-Greco style row houses and was demolished pursuant to a DOB emergency declaration. I recommend approval, finding that the construction of the new building on this vacant lot will eliminate a gap in the street wall, that the proposed height and massing of the new building, comprised of 3 stories over a basement, a rear extension, and a rooftop bulkhead, will be consistent with the neighboring buildings in the row, that the proposed design featuring brownstone tinted stucco cladding over a CMU backup wall and stoop, and decorative cast stone window enfranements and a hooded entry surround will closely match other Neo-Grec style houses in the row. That the proposed 1/1 double hung metal clad wood windows, paneled wood double doors, black painted GFRC, newel post and balustrade, and decorative ironwork at the door surround and the areaway will match other houses in the row, utilizing modern construction methods and a mix of traditional and modern materials. That the rear facade featuring brick cladding and regular punch window openings will align with rear facades of the 2 adjacent buildings and restore a unified rear cornice line with the row. That the proposed rooftop bulkhead and rear yard addition will not be visible from any public thoroughfare. That the proposed 2-story extension will align with the rear addition at the adjacent building and will be consistent in height and depth with other rear additions within the row and will not diminish the block's central green space. We also note that the handrail as presented should be looked at again with staff to potentially find another solution. And lastly, that the new building enhance the special historic and architectural character of the streetscape of Central Harlem, West 130, 132nd Street Historic District.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilder, would you second that motion?
Second.
Okay, and Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum. Oh, he's recused, sorry. Commissioner Equembe,
Aye.
Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
7 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Thank you. So please continue to work with staff. Thank you. We're ready for the next item.
Next item is public meeting item number 3, LPC 25-07751, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1914, Lot 47. 134 West 130th Street in the Central Harlem West 130 to 132nd Street Historic District. This is a neo-Greek style row house designed by Cleverton and Putzel and built in 1885. The application is to construct a rear yard addition. This was read into the record at the public hearing of October 21st, 2025. However, it was not presented at that time. Public testimony will be taken today for the first time, and the applicant will present the proposal after we open the proceedings.
Um, Commissioner Jefferson, would you make a motion to open the proceedings? Commissioner Chu, would you second that?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the proceedings are open.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Thierry Rignall. This may be one of the first times in history where two buildings right next to each other go back to back in a landmark presentation hearing. So you've had the opportunity through the previous applicant to get a sense of the block and what the building next door was. We're now at 134 West 130th. This is a building that's been vacant for almost a quarter of a century. The building next door had to be demolished a few years ago due to the state of disrepair. We're very excited and proud to be restoring this building. In order to optimize the internal floor plan, we are here before you today to ask for an 80 square foot extension on 2 separate floors in the back of the building to extend the L from 2 stories to 4 stories. This proposal is very much in line with the historical character of the neighborhood, takes into account the height and proportions of buildings surrounding this lot, and will enhance the use of the building for its future tenants. With me today is our architect, Andre Gomez, who will walk you through the thoughtful design that he's put together for this rear L extension.
Thank you, Terry. Good morning, Commission. My name is Andre Gomez. I run Andre Architecture. This is rehabilitation of 134 West 130th Street. It's primarily an interior job. There is some rear work, and so that's what we'll be presenting today. This is the subject property in 1940. We're on the southernmost part of the 130th, 132nd Central Harlem District. We're on the perimeter of the historic border. This is, again, the property in 1940 in its glorious day. A photo of current conditions. The vacant lot to the east here. There's no work proposed on the front face as a part of this project. The work is only in the rear. This is the existing 2-story bulk that was in the back of the building. The footprint is basically, it's an L. It's a rectangle with a smaller rectangle in it. This was a 2-story brick building in where the bulk was, and the building is 4 stories. And so what we're proposing is to take that 2-story addition, and we're wanting to do 2 stories above that. But we'll be still the same, less tall than the majority of the building. We're not going above the main building. We want to go up to it. In fact, we want to be a little bit below it. You'll see that in future slides. This is context for you in the yard. And so there's a total of 31 properties within the historic block. 13 of those properties have a rear bulk distance, overall depth that matches or exceeds our property. Of those 13 properties, 10 have a height that match or exceed the height that we're wanting to do. You'll see an aerial context photo on the left side here. There's a 5-story rear bulk addition, 2 parcels to the west of us. Again, our building is only 4 stories. 3 and 4 parcels to the east of us are also 5 stories. Those are full width and a story higher. That was current conditions. This is historic conditions. This is the 1912 map. there are 7 properties that exceeded both the distance and the height that our proposal, that our project proposes. You see the extension there on that side. And again, we're not proposing to change the footprint of the building, just add above it. Additional context photos here. That's 2 parcels. The second image is 2 parcels to the west of us. That's the 5-story full height addition. You see the approximate 2-story bulk datum line for reference in the photos. We look to the properties 3 and 4 to the east of us. Those are 5 stories, full width. Some of these were done in a not so historic character. It's heavily landscaped in the back. So there's kind of a lot going on back there architecturally in terms of the context. Additional photos from the aerial, just to kind of give you as much perspective as possible. The parcel directly to the south of us, I believe, is 6 stories. And that's an extra wide lot. So that kind of towers behind us. And there's non-historic buildings. Since we're at the border, there's non-historic buildings going taller on different sides, as you see on the right photo. And you see the neighbors on the far corner. Okay, so to get into the design, basically 2 stories on top of a brick base. And so there's these will be restrooms. And so those restrooms will have 2 windows. Those windows align vertically, and those align on the east side of the building. The moves on the work on the brick base is relatively modest. It's just to make it more workable for us. It's to switch the swing door to a window, and we're going to move the access into the garden down into the cellar. And so the new portion obviously is up above there. And I'll get into materials on the next slide. This is the south elevation, existing on the left, proposed on the right. You can see the 2-story addition above. We're very proud of the fact that the 2-story addition actually steps back so slightly from the brick base to a more slender metal top. We're not trying to emulate history. We're trying to respect it and acknowledge the fact that this is built in today's current construction methods and standards. But we're trying to do that in a sensitive way. And so there's no windows on the south face. That's actually intentional to keep that, to respect the fact that there are no windows below it. That allows us a symmetrical facade. We're going to run a gutter and a downspout right down the center to kind of play up that symmetry a little bit more. And again, that metal is going to step a little bit. It's going to be a heavier, darker base, a brick base, which is visually heavy, with a lighter mass on top, which will be metal, a little bit lighter. It's going to be a painted bronze cladding, and that's going to have a vertical profile to it, which will give it a texture, get a little bit of shade and shadow. And so that's it's going to speak to the brick a little bit in terms of, you know, how it's articulated. The bottom 3 materials, C, D, and E, concrete, stucco, brick. Those are more so for the rehabilitation work, the miscellaneous brick infill on the first floor. The stucco is on the cellar, the portion of the cellar that's exposed, with the new windows down there to get daylight into the cellar. This is a section through the building. It's not always easy to actually not align things, so it's a little bit more difficult to step that back. We're proud of that fact. That's an architectural gesture, as I had said. And so it's a metal framed on top of a brick. The other key detail here is staying lower than the top of the parapet. And so you see the top of the cornice right there on the original building is protected. And that's intentional. We want to, of course, preserve that historic detailing. We want to acknowledge the fact and let that building complete itself up at the roof line. This is a larger view of final and context and elevation. And so you see any buildings with the heavier outline, that's going to be equal to the foreground of the south elevation that we propose. So the buildings that have a darker gray hatch, those are equal to us in terms of how far south they go. And some of those are taller as well. This is a sketch just for context. We'll do a small green roof to meet DOB standards. It's a tray system. It's an extensive roof, not an intensive, meaning it's only going to grow a little bit there, which is, it's nice, but it won't take over the building, which I think is a good thing. That's the presentation.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Chu?
Yeah. You showed a slide with the image of a metal panel. Can you explain, do you have a rendering of what it looks like or color?
Just an illustrative sketch, and then we have the reference image here to the left. It's inspired by bronze. It'll be painted and it'll have a satin sheen to it.
But what is the detailing? Like this rendering suggests that it's vertical panel? Is that how it works?
Correct. Yeah, vertical. We can do full height on this.
Can.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I'm.
Correct. So it's a 12-inch shiplap, and then it's going to have a V groove every 4 inches. So it's basically 4-inch spacing on a vertical siding look.
And it's a reflective bronze.
Not reflective.
Oh.
We want that more satin, pretty low sheen.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions?
I'll just add, so the inspiration with the metal is it's a classical reference more or less to mansard roofs and heavier bases, lighter tops, high vaulted roofs typically done in metal. So it's a node to that.
Can I just ask, did you ever consider doing something that is standing seam zinc, which is commonly used in these types of conditions and has been approved often by the commission and works well with brick, natural metal, weathers as life?
Yeah, it's a better product. We would love to do a standing seam zinc. It's a cost decision.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
Going to say that I looked at this last night and I didn't understand the color. And if you had done a rendering, I could have really appreciated. I mean, it's an extrusion, what the color would be. But a rendering would be useful.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if there's any public testimony for this item. Is there anybody in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, let me turn it over to Stephen Thompson for remote testimony.
Those joining us via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. Our first speaker is Claudette Brady. I'll be promoting you to panelists, after which we ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning again, Claudette Brady speaking on behalf of Save Harlem Now. Save Harlem Now is glad to see this residential property rehabilitated. The proposed extension at the rear facade is not visible from the public way on West 130th Street. It will be visible from the rear yard, but given the bulk and height of the existing extensions at adjacent buildings, we have no objections to the proposed work. We recommend, however, that LPC staff work with the applicant to revise the alignment of the proposed new facade with existing main existing masonry and to ensure the finish of the proposed metal cladding at the extension matches closely the appearance of the restored brickwork at the existing extension below. Furthermore, we would also recommend that the staff work with the applicant to confirm the size and quality of the proposed residential units are code compliant and do not exceed the maximum number of units allowed. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Kaylee Johnson.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Kaylee Johnson, speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds this application to be inappropriate for the proposed finish of the rear yard extension. We do not object to the idea of an addition here, but this proposal seeks to add an addition with odd detailing and an inappropriate material choice. We would like to see this proposal redone in a way that better blends with the existing extension. Thank you.
Anyone else joining us via Zoom who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 10 recommends mixed approval, suggesting alignment and integration with existing masonry, that the finish and coloration of the metal cladding be sympathetic to the brickwork extension, and that the size and number of units be compliant with zoning regulations.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Would the applicant like to respond to some of the comments or?
We're obviously very excited to bring new life to this historic building that's been vacant for a quarter century. I think the choice of the material is really what's at of discussion here. We've been working with LPC staff on this project since February of this year. We've had a lot of back and forth in terms of ideas. We believe that the current proposal both reflects the historical aspects of the district and doesn't want to pretend like this was built 100 years ago. And so within the current context of what we're trying to build, we feel that it fits the character of both this brownstone and the general neighborhood as a whole. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Mayen, would you second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this proceeding is closed. Commissioner Wilder, would you like to start this discussion?
Sure. Yeah, I can find the actual addition of this area appropriate. However, I think the finish, the cladding is maybe unnecessary and can possibly be altered to maybe not draw as much attention and still fit within the context of the existing rear facade. Yeah, I think those kind of the main thing.
Thank you. Commissioner Ikumbe?
Yeah, I am. The massing is okay. The massing masks things that are in the existing area, and it's there's also a precedent for that. The concern I have is actually the material of the of this extension. I guess one thing that would have been helpful is if we actually had a rendering or something that could actually let me understand what it would really look like. Because right now I can't really tell if it's a good match for not only the building itself, but the context of the block. That being the case, I guess I would say that work with staff more to really figure out what the final product will actually be.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu?
Yes, I think that in terms of the proposed addition mass, considering the existing additions that are within this donut and the fact that half of the block from the rear yard is not in the district, there is a bit of a motley mix of buildings and heights within that donut. I feel that what's being proposed as a mass addition is appropriate and acceptable. I agree that the material choice leaves a lot of questions. Lack of rendering and details make it hard for me to judge the quality of the addition. I think that what's being added should represent a sense of permanence and quality as an addition to this historic house. The elevation suggests a gutter that runs along the face and in front of the brick. These are types of things that make me question the quality of the addition. I do think that the applicant needs to provide more details, joints, color, and work with staff on the detailing. It can be a beautiful project if detailed well, or if not detailed well, unfortunately, it could appear to be a temporary addition to something that will be later replaced. And I think the idea here from the presentation was to do a high quality addition that's contemporary and distinct from the existing. So I do think it needs more work with staff.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
I agree with Commissioner Chu.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
Me too.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Me three.
Commissioner Mahan?
I also agree, but I just did want to thank the applicant for their sensitivity and everything they described, but a bit more detailing with staff could help. But thank you.
Commissioner Ginsburg?
So I want to compliment the staff, the applicant, for not proposing just brick to match the existing brick. I'm not sure this is the right material or right color. I understand the zinc costs, but you could do some sort of standing seam aluminum that looked like the zinc. It won't be quite as nice, but I think it'd be good. Or stucco, and as I agree with Commissioner Chu and my fellow commissioners, you just need to work on the detailing and color to make sure it fits. But I do want to also compliment you on not taking what might be the easy route of a recreation extension.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilder, would you mind making the motion, perhaps asking them to restudy the cladding material and work on the final details with staff?
Sure, 1 second. In the matter of LPC -25077751, 134 West 130th Street, Central Harlem, West 130th to 32nd Street, Historic District, a neo-Greek style row house designed by Cleverton and Putzel and built in 1885. Application is to construct a rear yard addition. I note that the building style, scale, and materials and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Central Harlem, West 130th to 132nd Streets Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the proposed addition will not be visible from a public thoroughfare, that the proposed addition will be constructed on and set back from the historic rear extension at the second and third floors, thereby maintaining the existing pattern of historic extensions, that the block features a variety of buildings with similarly sized and taller rear yard additions and historic full height extensions, and therefore the massing of the proposed addition will be in keeping with the scale of the block, and that the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the Central Harlem, West 130th and 32nd Street Historic District. However, I find that the vertically oriented brown finish cladding material of the proposed addition is atypical of row houses and cause undue attention to itself. Therefore, I recommend that the material be revised to be more consistent with traditional masonry or other painted cladding materials typically found on rear facades and additions.
Okay,
Yeah, just to clarify, it won't be a masonry material, but the applicant will work with staff on the metal material selection as well as its finish and detailing.
thank you. Commissioner Kumbe, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Quimby,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Nay.
Nay. Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
With 8 in favor and 1 opposed, the motion passes.
Thank you. That's been approved. Please continue to work with staff. Thank you. And now we're going to move to our public hearing agenda.
We'll start with public hearing item number 1, LPC 26-00971, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 248, Lot 9, 77 Remsen Street in the Brooklyn Heights Historic District. This is an Anglo-Italianate style house built in 1857. The application is to install a cornice, modify the rear roof line, construct a rooftop bulkhead, remove a bay window, and construct a rear yard addition.
Good morning. My name is Ilya Vilnitz. I'm the architect for the project. This is 77 Remsen Street, located in the Brooklyn Heights Historic District on the north side of Remsen Street. Here's the 1940s tax photo of the building. In the late 50s, this
Can you try to
building.
speak into the mic a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, just.
This is the existing tax photo of the building. It was previously a 4-story building, but in the late 50s, it was altered to add an additional story and remove the cornice. At the front facade, we're proposing to replace the cornice at the roof line, resurface the existing building, resurface the lintels and sills of the windows, and restore the historic detail around the door. Here's the proposed and existing elevation. Our proposed new cornice is fiberglass. Here's some additional information on that cornice. Most of the joints of the cornice are hidden by the brackets, but the joints at the top of the cornice that are not hidden will be patched and sanded per the procedure below to create a monolithic look for the cornice. This building does not have a cellar floor as conventional townhouses have. So things like meters, storage, laundry, pumps, hot water heaters, and sprinkler backflow prevention devices cannot be located below grade. Therefore, they have to shift above grade. And this puts pressure on the necessary programmatic elements for this house. Therefore, we're also requesting a 2-story and cellar horizontal extension for the building. On the left is the existing rear facade elevation. You can see that there's an existing 2-story bay window. The bay window has been substantially altered and is in disrepair. The glazing is single pane. And we would like to propose to remove this portion of the rear facade to construct our 2-story extension. We have we originally proposed a much more modern version for the rear facade elevation. But we've collected feedback from the community board, from our neighbors, from the Brooklyn Heights Association, and we've revised our design significantly for a more contextual approach where we're recreating the existing historic bay window. The proposed extension is 10 feet to the face of the masonry and an additional 2'4" projection of the bay window. The original extension we proposed originally was 12 feet. So we've also set back our extension per the comments of the neighbors and the community board. And here's the existing and proposed elevation. You can see that at the proposed elevation, the bay window is being recreated in kind. And for context, here are photos of our neighbors at 79 and 75 Remsen Street. Both neighbors have a one-story bay window. And the neighbor at 79 Remsen Street has an approximately 20-foot two-story extension. This is the block plan for the building. As you can see, it's substantially built up. There's no pristine donut condition in the center, and approximately 71% of the buildings on this block have an extension. And again, you could see to our right, there, our neighbor at 79 Remsen has a two-story extension that's deeper than what we're proposing at 10 feet. Again, this is the aerial view of the block, and you could kind of see the built-up nature of this specific block, and that each building has been substantially altered. So this is the side elevation of the project. Here you can see the extension that we were just discussing. We're also proposing a stair and elevator bulkhead at the top of the building. And here are photos of the mock-up that we constructed and photos from the different vantage points on the roof. The bulkhead is partially visible from Remsen Street as shown in the red sliver. So here are photos from Remsen Street. You can see the bulkhead partially visible. And as you move west, you see slightly less of the bulkhead on Remsen Street. It's also partially visible from Montague Street over the existing one-story commercial building. But there have been two other bulkheads that have been recently approved that are more visible than what we're proposing from that same vantage point. And as you walk through the Brooklyn Heights Historic District, there's a number of visible stair and elevator bulkheads throughout the district. Here's some more examples of that. Here's a slide that just shows the summary of our project. You can see the two-story extension in the back with the bay window, as well as the one-story stair and elevator bulkhead at the top of the building, with the portion over the stair sloped to minimize visibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Chu and then Commissioner Jefferson.
Sorry, I may have missed this, but is that bay window original and historic to the house?
From our probes, it seems so, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a historic bay window. I'm not sure the actual original construction date could be entirely known. It seems to be unlike the other bays, which are one story on the houses nearby, but certainly it has historic detailing and materiality.
And there was some consistency of that on the block that was mentioned. There were other bay windows.
There are other bays, but I'm not sure that there are any other double height bays.
Okay.
So it's like a lot of row house blocks in Brooklyn where you do see oriel windows. Sometimes they're very repetitive and many houses have the exact same one. Other times there's kind of a mixture, which suggests they came in at different times.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Jefferson and then Commissioner Wilder.
Sure. If you go to the front facade, so the existing building had circular lintels on the top floor, and you're pretty much replicating it on the right-hand side, but you didn't change the lintels on the top floor. Why not?
The existing buildings, lintels at the very top floor, the extension that was added in the 50s have a square lintel, and we're maintaining that same square lintel. So the existing lintels at the top floor are square.
But the historic has rounded.
The historic,
Yeah.
yes, but there was a floor added to this building. So it was in the 50s, there was an additional floor added to the building with square lintels, and that's what exists there today, and that's what we're maintaining.
And it's almost a replication. So I'm looking at this and saying the cornice, the existing cornice had curved pieces to it, and you changed it.
I think that the curved pieces were in relation to the curved arches, because that cornice was also one floor lower. The historic version of the cornice was one floor lower positioned, And since now it's not adjacent to arched windows, we thought it was appropriate to make the bottom of the cornice square to match the lintels of the existing windows. And that was also a comment that we received from the Brooklyn Heights Association. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
On sheet number 6, you're not decreasing the roof height, are you? And what is the increased overall height adding the cornice?
So I'll go to the section. So you can see we're building up some exterior wall out of CMU, approximately 24 inches to accommodate the cornice, to maintain that relationship between the cornice and the top window. The roof height is not changing, but the existing roof has a significant slope for water drainage, and we're proposing to flatten that slope for it to create an accessible terrace at that level.
Okay, so the front parapet is pretty much the same, you're just adding.
We're just building it up slightly just to accommodate the cornice. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I think we have some public testimony on this item. We have some people signed up to speak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up the first 3 speakers, and then we can go in this order. The first speaker will be Saul Shapiro. The second speaker will be Robin Shanis, and then Keith Aronow. Saul, please come to the podium and state your name.
And please make sure the mic is on. There should be a green button when you walk up to the mic if you want to turn that on if it's not. Thank you.
Also, we're going to have to limit your testimony to 3 minutes.
Take out my phone so I can make sure that that happens. Tell me when I can begin.
Anytime, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Saul Shapiro. I live with my wife, Kareth Aronow, at 79 Remsen Street. The notion that this is responsive to the community board or to Brooklyn Heights Association is far-fetched. I mean, the community board decision, I commend you to read it. It only approved based on the extension being 3 feet deep, no further, and there be no excavation at all. And that is obviously not what they're proposing here. In addition, there's very harsh words about the commercial aesthetic of this project, which is deeply meaningful to us as residents of New York's first historic district. Instead, the applicants are proposing to destroy the historical double oriole. They're going back 12 feet. Their extension that they're proposing in the back is 25 feet wide, and it's 3 stories tall. It's in contravention of everything that we love about Brooklyn Heights. Every property owner in Brooklyn Heights, the developer included, benefits from owning in our landmark district. The developer should not be permitted to undermine the very aesthetic that makes its financial gains possible through its brazen manipulation of the FAR restrictions and similar types of contrivances. 77 Remsen Street is a big building, 25 feet wide, 50 feet deep, 5 stories tall. It's certainly big enough for a single family to inhabit. So how does he get the space? What he does is he proposes to excavate and thereby remove what is now a basement and turn it into a cellar, but because it'll be more than 50% below grade. So the developer will actually add more space below and use that additional space to justify even more space on the roof and in the back. The developer said he needed this space so he could have light and air in the basement that they're turning into a cellar. So the developer is destroying a unique historical feature, cutting off light and air that the surrounding houses have had for over a century, so it can add light and air to a space that had light before the planned addition. We at 79 have a 1-floor extension plus basement that was added more than 130 years ago. What he proposes will stand more than a full story higher than our extension, as tall as our actual house. It will eliminate green space with the concrete patio they're proposing, cut off natural light that presently falls across the neighboring houses and yards, and inevitably cause issues with water runoff. Finally, I should say, someone eventually is going to buy 77 Remsen. We will welcome that person to our neighborhood. The one thing we don't know is what these eventual neighbors will want. It seems misguided to destroy important historical features for a spec house that we don't even know what the eventual occupier of the house will want to have. Thank you very much for considering this. I urge you to reject it.
Thank you. And Robin?
Good morning. I'm Robin Shanis. I live at 75 Remsen Street. I'm here to ask you to reject the application for 77 Remsen Street for the following reasons. The applicant's plans dishonor the landmark district. The report issued 60 years ago when the district was created explicitly warns against the defacement of houses by renovations that are incompatible with surrounding architecture. That's what we have here. Here, the spec developer proposes to destroy an original architectural feature, an oriole on the back of an already large house, append a large, deep, boxy, commercial, intrusive, and unprecedented addition, and cap the whole thing off with a brand new, inauthentic reproduction oriole of indeterminate size and material. It's Disneyland without any regard to scale or massing. This is the kind of renovation that the Landmarks District was created to prevent, even in the back. The spec developer has not offered even one single precedent for its proposed addition, with its repro oriole on top, and we are not aware of any. This addition, if approved, will itself become an extremely bad precedent for our Landmark District. More appropriate additions will certainly follow. Notably, in a very different proposal filed a few weeks before this current one, the same developer put forth 8 obviously inapplicable precedents that the Land Use Committee and CB2 summarily rejected. Like my colleague, I urge you to read CB2's opinion. After the hearing, the spec developer submitted the present proposal, changed since the hearing, which, though different, is not in any way responsive to CB2's concerns. This time around, applicant has offered 0 precedents for this. There is nothing offered to justify this kind of incursion. 2, developer's addition will block sunlight from passing through the green space. Sunlight is already limited there due to the green space's northern aspect, the commercial buildings on Montague Street and the Bossert to the west. I think I heard the architect say that every building has an addition. That is completely false. And on our end of the donut to the west, there's not a single addition on residential space other than bay windows that are historically there. Developer plans to pave over their garden with impermeable hardscape, in spite of LPC and the Municipal Arts Society warning that impermeable landscape is harmful to our urban environment. No regard. We wonder why the spec developer is installing hardscape. There's no explanation offered, just as there's no explanation offered for bringing the elevator cab to the roof. Nothing in this proposal. We wonder whether the spec builder has it in mind to excavate the backyard all the way to the lot line and top off the new extended bunker with hardscape. We wonder whether this developer has it in mind, what he has in mind for the roof down the road. We simply don't know. Unfortunately, there's an awful lot we don't know from this proposal. It seems incomplete. I could go on, but I think I'm done. They failed to follow public presentation guidelines by amending the plan after the community board. The past is prologue. I am the Lorax, if that has meaning. So anyway, given the developer's actions to date, we have little confidence that the spec developer will excavate with the care and attention to detail necessary to protect our homes and neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin. And now we have Karis. Kenneth? Karis.
Hi, my name is Kareth Arano. I live at 79 Remsen, and I urge you to reject the application by the developer of 77 Remsen to excavate the existing basement, then discard the beautiful old window in order to add a big brick extension into valuable green space. It is that green space that I want to talk to you about today. That is the stretch of sky and sunlight and the gardens and trees that do the invaluable job of absorbing rainwater. The fancy footwork the applicant is planning in order to justify adding the extension may indeed work fine for the DOB. But in real life, above the ground, in the context where it would stand, the applicant's extension really is a completely unprecedented encroachment of the green space. The applicant's block plan exhibit that might justify the new encroachment is riddled with misleading graphics. You'll notice there are no existing encroachments to the west, but you couldn't know from the graphic that the encroachments to the east are in fact smaller in mass than the applicant's block plan exhibit would like you to believe. This goes back to the applicant's fancy footwork. The applicant labels both its own proposed extension and our historic extension 2 stories. But you can see, if you look at slide 15 or my exhibit, that in their proposed side facade elevations, that small unlabeled inner line, that is our house. Their own exhibit shows that the 2-story extension they wish to build would be a bit more than twice as tall as our existing extension, and disturbingly very nearly as tall as our entire house. In fact, the applicant misleadingly labels all of the historic extensions to the west to appear as tall or taller than their own, but it just isn't true. In real life, all of those 2s you see in the line are just 1 story above the stoop. Only the applicants and a 4th house labeled 3S are actually 2 stories above the stoop. These mistakes suggest that the applicant's conclusions in the block plan might deserve some more careful review, especially in this particular context. This residential block of Remsen backs up to Montague Street, the neighborhood's vital commercial thoroughfare. The Key Food supermarket, for example, occupies multiple lots and is fully built out to its property lines and is an invaluable amenity to the entire neighborhood. At the opposite end of the donut, not visible to 77, are 4 multifamily brownstones that make up most of the additional encroachment. I checked the buzzers on the doors and looked up their C of Os. 26 families live in those 4 brownstones. And there are also numerous medical offices. These were largely conditions already when landmarks became law. By lumping the long-standing and publicly valuable use of space into its representation that this donut is beyond saving, the developer is cynically distorting landmarks rules just as it distorts DOB regulations.
I'm so sorry, we're past 3 minutes, if you don't mind summarizing.
My last line, I ask you, please, do not let them.
Thank you, Kareth. We have 3 additional speakers signed up, and I'm going to call them in order. Gregory Dietrich, Stephen Merkel, and then Jeremy Litzen. So let's start with Gregory.
Good morning. My name is Gregory Dietrich of Gregory Dietrich Preservation, and I'm testifying in opposition to the design proposal for 77 Remsen Street on behalf of the owners of numbers 75 and 79. In preparation for this testimony, I reviewed historic maps and photographs and newspapers, as well as LPC's permit database. I also inspected the exterior of the property on October 14th. 77 Remsen Street is a 4-story over basement dwelling that was originally designed as a 3-story over basement dwelling in the Anglo-Italianate style circa 1856. In 1959, it had its 4th story introduced, which is most likely when its facade trim and cornice were removed as seen in figure 1, which is on the 2nd page of your handout. Remarkably, its rear elevation has survived intact, boasting a double height oriel that is not distressed beyond repair, and that appears on the earliest map showing this level of detail, in this case, an 1887 Sanborn, as shown in figure 2. In fact, this is the only double height oriel of those identified in the architect's site plan for the neighboring properties, and thus a rarity. Even the Italianate style was an anomaly of the row, making the double height consistent with the anomalous style. The applicant proposes to reintroduce the trim and cornice to the facade while replacing the oriel with a 3-story rear addition along with a 2-tiered concrete patio as seen in Figure 3. Beyond permeating beyond the loss of the character-defining feature, the proposed addition will block the extent of natural light permeating the central green space. At the same time, it will also increase the amount of impermeable area, eliminating more than half of the permeable area that is there now. Taken together, this proposal belies the Commission's sustainable objectives as articulated in its Green Row House Manual. Other questions abound regarding the proposed cornice design and material and the location of the proposed condensers, which are shown in different locations in different parts of the presentation. Disparities like this also speak to a larger issue of misrepresentation and deceit on the part of the applicant. For example, on the day I inspected the property, a workman was illegally removing the wrought iron railing at the rear steps, as shown in Figure 4. In addition, the applicant has repeatedly misrepresented the scale of the neighboring properties in order to minimize the perceived impacts of its own development, as seen in Figure 5. The prospect of destroying a significant feature that has endured nearly 175 years runs counter to preserving New York City's first historic district, a district that is nationally recognized as America's first commuter suburb. Moreover, the prospect of this 3-story addition and patio goes further and undermines the district's special sense of place. I urge you to reject this proposal and compel the applicant to produce a more appropriate design solution that retains and restores the oriel in situ and does not encroach on the central green space. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, Stephen?
Good morning. My name is Steve Merkel, and along with Robin, I live at 75 Remsen Street. I just wanted to talk about a couple of things and to emphasize what I think Kareth has said, which is the block plan that is in the applicant's submission is just, it's completely misleading. It suggests that you've got 2 4-story houses next to each other, 77 and 79. You just have to look at it, and one is 12 feet taller than the other. Again, I know that they sort of have a gimmick on the FAR with making the basement a cellar, but that has nothing to do with mass. That has nothing to do with the fact that 77 is 12 feet taller than 79. The same is true for the extensions. They make them all look like they're 2 stories, the same, but the proposed extension is absolutely more than 10 feet taller than all of the other extensions at 79, 81, and 83. It's really unforgivable and somewhat incomprehensible, but you would never know it by looking at the block plan. With respect to how they have submitted renderings of the effect of the extension on 79 Remsen, they stretch what looks like the 79, and you can see it in the rendering. It's absolutely wrong. The extension is almost to the top of 77. So what do you do about these? Look, it's one thing if you sort of exaggerate your height, you're short, you maybe go on tiptoes for photographs, but they're just lying about how tall they really are and making everything around them seem higher than they are. And I don't know what you can do about that. I don't think it's fair to call it a mistake. I just wanted to mention with respect to the oriel, to remind everyone that at first, the developers wanted to destroy the architectural treasure. Now there's a cynical proposal to slap an ersatz version onto the extension. This is phony. It's an ill-suited replanting. I couldn't think of the right analogy for it, so I'll just say it is in the manner of Braque or Picasso as a cubist version of an oriel. It is anything other than the real thing and in the wrong place. With respect, I ask you to please not approve this application to ruin 77 Remsen and forever alter our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And now we have Jeremy.
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Lexon. I'm the president of the Brooklyn Heights Association and the chair of our Landmarks Committee. We think this proposal needs substantial revisions before it can be considered appropriate. We strongly urge keeping the existing double oriel bay window
assembly at the rear facade. All the evidence points to these windows being original fabric of the house. This is backed by the unique rear facade fenestration pattern at the upper stories, which aligns with the Orioles. This house was built on its own. It was not part of a row, and it's a unique design. For such a distinctive original feature, there should always be a presumption for keeping the material and not discarding it for the sake of a new extension. And for this property, where the rear facade, especially the Orioles, appears to be the only original material remaining on this house after the 1950s renovation, we think it's especially true to preserve the Orioles. Even if the windows have suffered some deterioration, they can be restored without being demolished. Given that the applicant has already changed the application since presenting at the community board by adding an echo of the original Orioles onto the extension, clearly they think that the Orioles are an important element to keep. We think that they should carry that idea to its logical conclusion and simply keep the original Orioles instead of replacing them with imitations. We also note that the proposed replacements feature a less elegant panel and spandrel design and are proposed to include GFRC instead of being built out of all wood. We think both of these choices are poor ones. We think that there's a potential solution to our concern. The applicant could relocate some or all of the desired extra floor area to the rear of the roof or to the basement under the existing Orioles instead of adding a new extension. At the roof, we think there's enough space in the rear to design a modestly bigger extension or addition without being too highly visible, either from Remsen Street or from Montague Street from the rear. And we also note at Montague Street from the rear that the current visibility over the one-story non-contributing 20th century stores, the ones with the very deep extensions into the donut, we think that those one-story buildings are unlikely to last forever, and that visibility may not be there forever also. Even if an extension is approved here, contrary to our suggestion to preserve the Orioles, we do recommend that the east flank of any extension be cut back or chamfered as much as possible to respect the special stained glass that you saw next door at 79 Remsen Street to preserve its light and also so that there's no possibility that it's damaged during construction. At the front of this house, we understand that others today will be testifying to use a cornice that replicates the historic cornice at this house with its arched frieze band, or even to redo the top story window lintels to be arched like the original ones, the original stories below. But we don't agree that putting up a faux 19th century top story addition to this house would be the right approach. The 20th century addition should be distinct from the original building. In fact, we would have supported undoing the top story addition from the 50s entirely.
Sorry, we're past 3 minutes,
Okay,
if you don't mind summarizing.
Yep, and redoing this house to be like 20 Remsen Street, which this commission approved recently. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room who would like to testify on this item? Noting that there isn't, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Thompson for remote testimony.
Thank you. Those joining us via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function, after which you'll be promoted to panelists. We ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. The first speaker will be Kaylee Johnson.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Kaylee Johnson. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds the majority of this proposal to be a thoughtful and excellent restoration, especially of the front facade. Given the ambition of this renovation, HDC asks that the applicant add flat arches to the top floor windows and have the frieze of the cornice follow that set of curves, similar to the historic facade. The rear facade, while largely appropriate, could use further study on how the bay windows meet or do not meet the top of the parapet. Additionally, the parapet itself needs more articulation. The same level of design that has been given to the bay windows should be found in the entire composition of the extension. Thank you.
The next speaker will be Christina Conroy.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society, New York. Now founded in New York City in 1966, the Victorian Society in America is dedicated to fostering the appreciation and preservation of our 19th and early 20th century heritage. The New York chapter promotes preservation of our historic districts, individual landmarks, interiors, and civic art. Now, we generally approve of the proposed changes to 77 Remsen Street. We are curious, however, about the design for the cornice. The historic photo shows that the original cornice had arches corresponding to the arched lintels on the third floor. Now, we acknowledge that the lintels on the fourth floor, which were added later, were originally flat rather than arched. The proposed cornice is in keeping with the shape of the fourth floor lintels, but not with the original design of the house. We also support the changes to the rear of the house, but wonder whether the original bay windows are salvageable. If there is no issue with the present windows, we suggest keeping the original structures. Thank you, Commissioners.
The next speaker will be Steve Cohen. Steve Cohen, if you could please accept the invitation to be promoted to panelist.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. My name, as you said, is Steve Cohen. I am a 40-year resident of the neighborhood. I raised my children in the neighborhood. My father lives in the neighborhood, and I walk the block in question just about every day. I have zero expertise in this area, or certainly as an architect, and I defer to all of those who spoke before me. I am a lawyer, however, and the one thing that strikes me about this whole situation is that the extension that is being proposed is both not in keeping or in character with the neighborhood, but more importantly, it strikes me that it is a kind of pretextual plan that lawyers like myself come up with to get what you want in a speculative environment. This strikes me as largely driven by an effort to increase the square footage in a historic, beautiful neighborhood in order to turn around and sell this property at a enhanced price. Although that may not be explicitly the issue before this commission, it strikes me that the abuse of the rules here to allow for the kind of expansion that will alter the character of this particular building is something that you certainly can take note of and be mindful that this kind of chipping away at the very purpose and the very policy that this commission was created for is something that should not be allowed. And I would urge you to, on those terms, reject this.
The next speaker will be Peter Steinberg.
Sorry about that, folks. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Peter Steinberg. I've been a resident of Brooklyn Heights for 25 years. Living in New York City's very first landmark district has given me a deep appreciation for the crucial role this commission plays in preserving the character and integrity of our city's neighborhoods throughout the 5 boroughs. About 15 years ago, I had the opportunity to work closely with the Landmarks Commission when I undertook a renovation of my own home just a block away from this property on Remsen Street, an 1850s carriage house. It was a significant project, and I found the staff here to be serious about their mission, yet fully understanding of the practical issues homeowners face. We had productive conversations. I was able to navigate the process towards a solution that met everyone's needs and upheld the values of preservation. That experience reinforced my respect for the Commission's balanced and thoughtful approach. I've reviewed the current proposal for 77 Remsen Street in detail. And while there are elements worth commending, I like what they're doing with the facade actually in the cornice. But there is one major concern I feel strongly enough that I've made time to appear today. The applicant's effort to manipulate the underlying calculation of the floor area ratio, the FAR, it strikes me as deeply problematic and really, as Steve Cohen mentioned, it's sort of a lawyer's game. As I understand it, the existing structure is already built more or less to its maximum FAR. Yet the owners now propose to extend their building an additional 10 feet to the rear. To achieve this, they intend to lower the floor plate of the garden level, the existing garden level, just enough so that more than half of it sits below grade, thereby erasing that level from the FAR calculation entirely. To my knowledge, this maneuver has never been attempted before in the 5 boroughs, and it strikes me as simply absurd. It may technically satisfy the letter of the zoning code, but it definitely violates the spirit of both zoning and preservation principles. I mean, if you think about it, following the same logic, what would prevent someone from removing all the floor plates of their home, achieving and then using the newly freed FAR to extend their footprint to cover their entire lot? And even then, they technically only have a FAR of 1. FAR exists to protect the scale and rhythm of our historic blocks. To exploit a loophole in order to expand beyond what's intended undermines not only the purpose of the law, but also the trust the public places in this process. I suspect in time the Department of Buildings will close this loophole, but Rome wasn't built in a day. So in the meantime, I urge this commission to exercise its judgment to prevent this abuse of the rules. Landmark districts rely on the integrity of this body to ensure that changes are thoughtful, proportionate, and in keeping with the historic fabric that makes these neighborhoods so exceptional. Thank you for your time, and I really appreciate all the work you put into preserving the tiny fraction of our city that's protected by landmarks. I think it's probably about only 3 or 4%. Thank you.
Anyone else joining us via Zoom who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 2 recommends mixed approval, conditional upon removal of the rear excavation and retaining wall from the scope, and reduction of the rear yard extension to no more than 3 feet in depth, and reconsidering the design to reference either the current bay window or actual T-porches in the neighborhood.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to respond to any of the comments?
So we took great care in representing the neighboring buildings as accurately as possible, given not really having access to measure them. You can see here's the photo of the real life existing condition and our rendering. So there's no effort here to deceive anybody about proportions or size. We try to represent every portion of this project as accurately as possible. And regarding the block plan, this is, I kind of expected some of this feedback, and I triple checked all these heights and dimensions, and I think the disconnect is really a misunderstanding between a basement and a cellar, and these elevations and stories were calculated using the building code definition of what a story is. So it is accurate, and we stand by it. So there is no misrepresentation of this block plan. Regarding the excavation, which is not really a public hearing item, but I'll just reinforce the reason why we're going for this extension is that this building is missing a whole floor. Typically, buildings of this type have a whole entire floor that's completely underground. We don't have that floor. So all of that back of house space that lives in that floor that's below grade has to now go above grade. And again, that puts pressure on all the elements that are above grade, and therefore we feel a small 10-foot extension is justified in this condition. When you consider the fact that the block is significantly built up, and by code we're allowed to go higher, we're allowed to go deeper, but we purposefully proposed a moderate extension here to not infuriate the neighbors. We want to be good neighbors, and it's a shame that we're put in this position to have this discussion at odds. We really don't want this, and unfortunately our paths cross this way, but we really try to be respectful of the neighbors, of the neighborhood. We've significantly altered our rear facade design. I don't know if any of you saw the previous design. It was much more modern, and we listened to some of the same comments about not being contextual. And people are looking for precedent, and really, like, there's no better precedent than the existing condition, which we're replicating because of the comments that we've heard when we originally made this presentation. So we shortened our extension as well on the second round. So we really tried to be accommodating to all of these same comments that you've just heard before. And we feel that our proposal is contextual and within the guidelines of Department of Buildings and Landmarks. And one word in the Department of Buildings, we've cleared all our objections there. Our only remaining objection is provide landmarks approval. So they have no issue with what's going on. Everything is completely above board. This, cellar basement calculation is a kind of letter of the law calculation. It's not, there is no moral, ambiguity about it. And maybe the homeowner and Michael would like to also say response.
Michael Devonshire from JHPA. We are the preservation consultants for this project. I have 45 years experience in historic preservation, and we were hired by this client to essentially our guide was to make sure that this was appropriate from a preservation standpoint. One of the larger issues seems to be the condition of the two-story bay. And that was one of the first questions that I asked. We have inspected this bay, and my initial thought about, well, someone said something about it being able to be salvaged. Well, in fact, you could also salvage the Titanic, but the amount of work that would be necessary and the amount of replacement of original material that would be necessary would make it a complete new pastiche, completely inauthentic. And I think our client has gone beyond the amount that most people would go to replicate this, so that that visage of the rear facade is as original as possible. Thanks.
Thank you. Good.
Hello, my name is Bill Caleo. I'm the developer on this project. I've been a developer in Brooklyn for 25 years, close to 25 years. We've done a lot of historic preservation on a lot of buildings in Brooklyn Heights and in Park Slope over the years. One thing that my neighbors are saying is that we'll create a monstrosity, something that isn't contextual to the neighborhood, that won't be respectful, and I wish only respect for this neighborhood. I can honestly say that. I also say I really want to get along with my neighbors really badly. I'm a people pleaser and want to get along, but they've been demonizing me the way they did in their presentation since the moment I met them, and it's been a very, very difficult road. I don't want them to be unhappy, but I do believe that what we're doing follows the rules of landmarks, follows the rules of DOB. We've really listened to a lot of what people had to say and took that in, and that's the presentation you see here. There's no fraud here. The idea of that is just really disrespectful. The other thing I want to say is I was worried about light, and I thought about light into this backyard, and we did a light study with the landscape architect. Okay, this is a north-facing facade. It has no natural sunlight beating onto this backyard, as we all know. The only time there's natural sunlight that beats on this backyard is from the middle of May to the end of August for 2 hours a morning, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. The rest of the time is ambient light. The neighbor at that has the extension right next to us, the sun comes over, so there will be no shade from our extension on their building at all, zero. The other side, that building will have a few of their windows blocked from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., as I told you, from May until August. Not a huge situation. So thank you for your time, and we appreciate your perspective.
One last thing I forgot to mention is that this extension is completely non-visible from any public thoroughfare.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions?
Actually, before that, could I just make a note? There's been a lot of testimony about light and air and water runoff, and while those are obviously all very important issues, the LPC is an agency of very limited jurisdiction, and so those matters are not before us.
And as the applicant explained, of course, this project must be reviewed for the zoning and building code issues by the Department of Buildings.
Thank you, John. Okay, so we have a couple of questions from commissioners. We're going to start with Commissioner Wilder.
Yeah, quick question. Trying to understand the rear yard context a little better. Sheet or drawing on page 24 shows perspective of the site plan, and it's a little different than the actual site plan showing the rear yard extensions. Can
Sorry, I
you?
don't have the sheet numbers here in front of me. Is it?
It's towards the rear, your rendering of the rear yard.
I'm sorry, what, I don't have the page numbers here.
Is it the axonometric block
Yeah,
plan?
yep. Yeah, this one. Yeah, it's difficult to understand which buildings do have the rear yard extensions from here.
So this aerial view, you know, the renderer could not model the entire block of Brooklyn, of this block. So this is really just a summary of our project in the context of the neighboring building heights. The block plan that is the most accurate in terms of dimensions and number of stories is the block plan that we illustrated here, which shows the extensions and the existing conditions of the buildings.
Thank you. Commissioners, who else had questions? Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, just to be clear, and there was a lot of comment about this, and you confirmed the accuracy of this plan. What does two mean in your mind?
Two stories. A story is defined in the building code as a basement, 1, 2, 3. It's anything that's considered a story. So what's not a story is a cellar. A cellar is a space that's more than 50% below grade. So we're proposing a 2-story and cellar extension. So therefore, the 2-story portion counts as the 2-story, and the cellar is not a story in the eyes of the DOB and building code.
The properties to the right on this plan say 2S. If those are classified as basements, then in height, they are a basement and 1 floor above grade, correct? Is that where the distinction lies here?
The building directly to the right of us does have a basement. So one of the stories labeled here is a basement floor, correct?
Just as a point, I think it would be much more useful for us to see an actual massing of this than a labeling, because it doesn't tell us heights. It's more about definition of floors than it is about mass, which is what we're trying to understand here. My other question is, if you can go to a slide that compares the existing to the proposed in rear elevation, okay. So I am also a bit confused about the discussion. I understand the difference of basement and cellar designation, but here it does say cellar from basement, and the elevation is the same, but there's 2 feet added in the string. So I'm confused too. It says cellar plus 69 in both, but there's 2 feet gained somehow.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, that is a typo. I apologize for that. There is a 2-foot difference between the 2 elevations. So I believe on the right, it should say 67 feet approximately.
Okay, so in fact, what is the scope is that you're excavating the lower level by 2 more feet throughout. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that done by stepping away from the existing foundation, or are you proposing to shore these walls up?
We have an independent wall on one side, which we're going to be underpinning, and we have a party wall on the opposite side, which we're working to with the neighbors for an agreement to either underpin that wall, or if not successful, we will have an alternate foundation solution.
Okay, now I understand the situation. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Jefferson and Commissioner Ginsburg.
You're trying to be very rigorous. So the question of the bulkhead is visible. I mean, and the height of it is 9'7", I think it is. Can you reduce that to 8 feet? The
It-
interior dimension?
It's mostly driven by the overrun of the elevator that we're proposing.
Ah, okay.
So you can see it's reduced
thank
as
you.
much as possible at the elevator portion.
This may be as much for staff as the future. I realize that you may not be easy, it may not be easy to get the elevations, the height in feet of all the adjacent buildings, although that might be possible and would be helpful. But for future, often when you have a basement and a one-story addition, it will indicate B plus 1 story instead of 2 stories. You were technically correct that the building department considers it 2 stories, but given that you're now making your basement a cellar, and so you say you're 2 stories, that is different than the adjacent. And although technically what was shown here is accurate in terms of how it is defined in the building department, for our review, it is somewhat misleading.
Commissioners, any other questions? Okay, so let's go ahead and close the hearing. Um, Commissioner Wilder, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Kumbe, would you second that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Okay, Corey, you want to speak?
Yeah, just want to touch on a couple things. The Oriole window, the commission has pretty much always considered those in and of themselves to be significant architectural features, whether they're visible or not, and has often sort of considered them as part of public hearing proposals. And you know that can vary, as I mentioned earlier. Sometimes you have a block with many of them in a repetitive fashion. Other times they're individual houses, or they just were added on at different times, look different or placed differently. Maybe this has a little bit of both, but certainly this is an individual house, and I think the only one with the 2-story bay. I'll just note, however, that the commission has, in some cases, approved removing the bay window, sometimes salvaging it if possible, sometimes replicating it or something close to it, or some version of that, as part of an application that also seeks a rear yard addition. So that is something that's been reviewed and approved in the past. I'm not saying that happens every time, but it's certainly something that's been done before. And because they want to maintain the sort of, as was stated, visage of the feature, has found that to be appropriate to sort of relocate it and reinstate it. And then the other thing I'll just say about rear additions, I agree. There's, you know, in some cases here, I think the materials submitted are lacking. It would have been nice to have sort of a 3D aerial shot, which you can actually get pretty easily from Google Maps and swirl around and see a little bit better. But ultimately, the number of stories is perhaps less important than just sort of the bulk, the massing itself, its depth and its height, and how that compares to the surrounding massing of additions that enter a particular block. And I think some of that's missing for you all to see. So I will note that a few houses down at 85 Remsen, the commission did approve a 3rd-story addition, well, and I'll say a 1-story addition on top of the existing L there, making it a story taller than the other Ls that exist in that group to the left of this house looking that direction. So just to paint that picture that some height has been added in this particular group of buildings before. And some of the other Ls that are in this group are deeper than what's being proposed here. So just again, sort of filling in some of the blanks here that we can't necessarily see due to the limited views that have been provided. But again, it's not necessarily the exact number of stories or how the FAR was used or not used. It's really just about how its bulk relates to its context.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum, would you be comfortable starting this discussion?
So I did exactly what Corey suggested, which is to take a little tour on Google Earth of the block. And I do think that the way that the site plan is designated is not clear. But I also think that this particular block is far from uniform, far from what I would call like a virgin block where everything's really, you know, all the same and really open and untrammeled. I don't think that that's by any stretch of the imagination the way that one would describe this particular donut. There's certainly no question that additions of this scale, irrespective of the designation on the site plan with the number of floors it may or may not have, additions of this scale are approved at this commission regularly, typically, especially in blocks that are like this one, showing evidence of change over time and different accretions and insertions into the rear yards to create a varied spatial experience. So I don't think that the volume of the addition per se is inappropriate by the standards of the commission. I think that like council has said, the remarks of testimony related to light and air and runoff are all important, but are not relevant to our considerations of appropriateness. I think that the first thought I had with regard to the bay window was, could it be salvaged and repositioned? There is on the applicant's team an esteemed professional whose judgment I trust, and if he says that it can't be salvaged at a reasonable cost and in a reasonable way, I think that I would take it, that I'd take his word for it. I would ask that the applicant work with staff to replicate the details and profiles to the greatest extent possible, and to produce an oriel or bay window that's as close to what's there as can be. I think that would carry over to the use of wood if that is feasible from a code perspective. I think that the rooftop addition is minimally visible and appropriate. I think that the cornice, there was some discussion about whether it should seek to replicate the 1940s cornice, which showed one story less and segmental arches over the top floor windows, which are still there, of course. And I don't think that that's necessary here. I think that the facade has been modified. They're not proposing to return it to its original proportions. And I think that the cornice is, it's not seeking to emulate a specific historic model, but is generally trying to be consistent with the aesthetics of the blended facade that it is the top of. So, and I think that's an appropriate way to go about it. And this is a very varied streetscape with lots of individual buildings that are of different heights and conditions. And I think that this cornice would not be out of place, nor would I think the volume of the building be out of place, nor do I think that the shape of the headers of the windows as they are currently configured is modification. So I think it can be done as it is.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen? Oh, wait, Commissioner Chen's not here. Commissioner Mahan?
Sure. I'd like to begin by expressing my appreciation for all of the public testimony. That's a really important part of this process. So I'm thankful that we had all of that today. As others have stated, the remit of this commission is somewhat limited, especially as it relates to light and air, water runoff, FAR, and so forth. But I am certainly sympathetic to the comments that have been made. That being said, I agree with Commissioner Goldblum that the block is not pristine whatsoever. The scale of the addition on the back is appropriate. It retains the sense of scale of the the townhouse as it exists today and has at least since the one-story addition. The materiality is historically appropriate, including the recreation of the oriel window, which is a lovely addition. The rooftop addition is minimally visible, and the restoration work, including the cornice on the front, is appropriate and will be a big improvement to this building and this block.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
I agree with my fellow commissioners' comments. The only thing I'd add is it may not be possible to totally preserve the oriel window, but if there are elements that can be preserved and used on the replacement, I'd appreciate working with staff that the applicant do that.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilder?
Yeah, I think I agree with overall comments that have been stated previously. I do, although I do believe that the rear yard extension is appropriate, I do think that we should definitely have the rest of the information so that we can compare it to the rest of the properties. And then as well as the oriel window, I do prefer the original one. So obviously it's been stated that it can't be salvaged, but I would definitely encourage the applicant to work with staff to revise the proposed design.
Thank you. Commissioner Kimbe?
In general, I find what's been presented to be appropriate. I don't find the massing to be out of place. I'm in agreement that the oriel window should be third, mimic whatever it is that can be done in order to make it fit nicely and have a new home. As for the front, the cornice at the top, I think it was a smart idea to keep it flat to mimic also the changing nature of the front facade. So I believe that's appropriate as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu?
I'm in general agreement with my fellow commissioners and Michael's assessment overall. I think the challenge that I've had with reviewing this proposal is that this house sits specifically on a bit of a change of mass on this block. And I do appreciate the testimonies, and 79 Remsen, which is next door to it, is a smaller scale house, and it didn't have the addition of the top floor that 77 did, that bulked it out even more. So I definitely appreciate that challenge here on the site. And would it have been more sensitive to do maybe an addition here that pulled away from 79? And we've seen many of those where they didn't go lot to lot. That would have been a much more sensitive proposal in my mind. However, as Michael has put it, this is something that we have traditionally approved as an approach. It's not a full height. It's 2 floors. It's not 3. 3 is the original building height of the house. So I find it appropriate. I do agree that the state of the existing oriel needs just to be confirmed. And if they're reproducing it, they should properly reproduce it in the proposed new construction. I also think that a little more detail needs to be put on the balcony relationship above the addition to the oriel. I think it's a bit heavy-handed, needs some finessing.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
When I looked at this last night, I thought that the architect wanted to essentially restore the facade. It seemed to me that was the intention. Then when I looked at the cornice, I said, why that cornice? Why not go back to the original cornice? So I thought the consistency of thought was kind of shifting. And that's why I recommended the curving on the 4th floor and the replication of the cornice of the historic. but they don't have to do that. That's up to them. And well, I can accept the cornice that they have. Modify the roof line, fine. The bulkhead, I think it's fine. And the bay windows could be refined and become more precise to the historic ones if they want to, but it's fine too.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum, would you like to read the motion?
Sure. Regarding LPC 26-00971, 77 Remsen Street in the Brooklyn Heights Historic District, the application is to install a cornice, modify the rear roof line, construct a rooftop bulkhead, remove a bay window, and construct a rear yard addition. I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Brooklyn Heights Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the proposed fiberglass cornice will recall the historic cornice in terms of configuration, details, and finish, that the proposed rooftop bulkhead will be visible within the context of taller buildings and other rooftop accretions and will not call undue attention to itself, that the design and materiality of the rooftop bulkhead featuring a sloped roof form and off-white stucco cladding will be in keeping with the rooftop bulkheads found in buildings of this type throughout the historic district. That the proposed rear yard addition will not be visible from any public thoroughfare. That proposed rear yard addition will not rise to the full height of the building, will not project further into the green space than other adjacent additions. Therefore, the work will maintain a sense of the building's original massing and not overwhelm the building or diminish the central green space. That the existing two-story bay window, which was previously altered, will be reconstituted at the proposed rear yard addition. That the proposed design and materiality of the rear yard addition, featuring brick cladding, punched openings, two-story painted fiber cement the two-story bay, simulated double-hung windows, metal railings will be in keeping with the residential scale and character of the building, and that the work will not diminish the special architectural and historic character of the Brooklyn Heights Historic District. However, I recommend that the applicant work with staff to refine the details and materiality of the bay window, and to also look at the proportions and details of the parapet above the bay window at the roof of the addition.
Thank you. Commissioner Mayen, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. John, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Quimby,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson, Commissioner Mayen,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
8 in favor, none opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you. That was approved. Please continue to work with staff on the details. And now we're ready for the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 2, LPC 26-02845, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 255, Lot 36, 158 Remsen Street, aka 158 to 182 Remsen Street, the Brooklyn Union Gas Company Building individual landmark. This is a neoclassical style office building designed by Frank Freeman and built in 1914, and the application is to replace windows.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Sarah Scher from Higgins Quaisbarth and Partners. We are the historic preservation consultants for the project at 176 Remsen Street. I'm joined today by Peter Donahoe of Rock Rose, the owner and developer of the site, Robert Laudenschlager, James Davidson, and Delara Hossein from SLCE Architects, architects for the project, Exusha Arangamadi from CANI, the facade consultants for the project, and my colleague Erin Ruley. So you may recall that in summer 2024, we presented a proposal to adaptively reuse 176 Remsen Street, the former Brooklyn Union Gas Company building, an individual landmark. This project included restoring the central infill, creating new retail storefront entrances at the base, and a new rooftop addition. This is part of a larger residential development that you'll see in the plans throughout the presentation with these new buildings to either side of the building. So today we will be presenting scope for replacement, window replacement. Because the building is being converted into apartment units, code requires ADA compliant windows so that any individual living in the apartments can operate the windows. The existing windows at the front facade are 1/1 calamine windows, which we'll look at more closely. We'll be proposing new aluminum windows to match the historic as closely as possible. That will have a fixed top sash and an in-swing casement bottom sash. Also, before your review at this non-visible secondary elevation, there's a large monumental window that is a special window per LPC rules that will also be replaced with a new aluminum window to match historic. So the building was constructed in 1914, designed by Frank Freeman. As I mentioned, was originally the headquarters of the Brooklyn Union Gas Company. It was converted into an academic building by St. Francis in 1962, and its new life will be converted into a residential building. The existing windows are original. They are calamine, which means it's a sheet metal over a wood frame. This particular metal is a brass alloy. As you can see, they're 1/1. The windows were measured and studied so that new custom windows could be created for this window replacement project. As part of our investigation for background, we also did an air leakage test on the existing windows, and they failed very badly. One was so bad that it could not even meet the minimum required pressure to perform the test. Also, as background, we looked at how Landmarks has reviewed similar projects. This one example is recent from 2024 at 95 Madison Avenue. Also an individual landmark, also has had original calamine windows and was also being converted from a commercial building to a residential building. And in the findings, Landmarks noted that the new windows would serve the adaptive reuse of the building, would only be perceptible in difference when the bottom sash was in operation, because the bottom sash would be a casement, and otherwise was appropriate. Jablonski Building Conservation was involved in investigative analysis of the windows, both in the metallurgy aspect, but as well as finish. So the historic finish was pre-patinated reddish brown color, which you see in the center here. The left-hand side is a corrosion that has happened over time, and then the right is the brass alloy, just in its bright finish. So the goal is to match the historic finish as closely as possible. We're still working on that. We have a sample of what the finish looks like on the aluminum, which will be the window material, but we're still working on getting this exactly right, though I think we're quite close. So here we have approved and proposed overall elevation. So the historic building ends here, and what's above is the approved rooftop addition. So we're talking about the windows from the 3rd floor to the top. These are detail elevations showing the double hung operation to a fixed top sash and an in-swing casement bottom sash. And then we have details. I won't go into the exact dimensional changes, but I'll just note that they are as minimum as possible to accommodate both the operation change and also having insulated glazing. We've worked very hard on getting these details as close as possible. And I'll just note that so the existing, which is on the left, the proposed that's on the right, you see the top fixed sash is in the same plane as the double hung top sash, and the bottom is set back so that it has the offset as if it were a double hung window, but we'll have an in-swing operation at the bottom. Here we have 2 horizontal sections of the proposed to show the difference between the fixed jamb and the casement jamb. New brick molds will be provided to match the existing brick molds. At the top floor, the 8th floor, all the way at the top of the building, we have this unique condition where there is a transom above one of the double hung sash that leads to one assembly with a metal solid band. So this photo here is from the inside, so you can see the assembly together. There's a sort of floating limestone beam in front of it. So this just shows the pivot transom sash going to an awning sash in the proposal. And here's a vertical section detail. This is that limestone beam floating in front, the metal panel behind, and the 1/1 sash below will have the same detailing as the previous details we looked at before. Going to the back of the building, so this special window monumental assembly is also the brass alloy, a calamine window, so sheet metal wrapped over wood. All of these arched windows were the same configuration but had been replaced over time. We will be installing new windows to better match historic at these other window openings. And here are elevations. So that top transom level is 3 pivot sash. That'll go to 2 fixed sash flanking 1 awning sash. And at the bottom, the 3 double hung sash will be fixed top sash with a bottom in-swing casement. And here we have the details showing the transom bar profiling being matched for the proposed and the details being very similar. All the glazing calculations, this one has a 1.6 decrease in glazing area, and then the main 1/1 is a 0.1 reduction in glazing, and then the transom sash was a 0.3 reduction in glazing, so very close to the historic area of glazing. And this is a horizontal section showing the transom area and how that transom will be divided at the top of the monumental window. And then just this rendering is not intended to show what the windows look like, but just reflecting that this is the same project that you saw. It's a adaptive reuse of an important individual landmark, and that this proposal will provide ADA compliant windows that closely match the historic as possible. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay, Commissioner Mahan?
Could you explain the sort of rationale and need for the replacement? You mentioned ADA a couple times. I'm unclear how that relates to the existing versus the proposed. Are there other rationales as well? Are the existing, I might have missed it,
Sure.
insulated or monolithic?
Yeah, it's also insulated glazing to provide more energy efficiency. Also, the casement sash is more energy efficient. But the idea is that a person in a wheelchair can't lift up a double hung window. And so the casement operation allows somebody in a wheelchair to operate a window more easily. And it's a code requirement in the city for residential conversions, which if you want more specific on the code, I can pull up someone from SLC.
Okay. Are there any windows with muttons historically
No,
or existing?
just 1/1.
Double glazed or triple or
The new windows are
insulated or
the existing ones.
the new?
The new ones are double.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to for testimony. We have one person who has signed up, Jeremy Lichten. Would you like to come to the podium? Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Jeremy Lexon, President of the Brooklyn Heights Association and Chair of our Landmarks Committee. We support this application. Ordinarily, our preference would be to keep original brick molds. However, we understand the circumstances of this adaptive reuse project and why that isn't realistic. If this were a house with far fewer windows and the majority of them more visible by being closer to the ground and with different code requirements applying, we would have urged to keep the originals, the original brick molds. But here we think this plan is appropriate. I'd also like to take the opportunity to point out that this proposal being heard just immediately following the prior proposal on Remsen Street, only 2 blocks away, illustrates the diversity of the building types in Brooklyn Heights, which we're very proud of. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to turn it over to Stephen Thompson to see if we have any remote testimony.
Those joining us via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function, after which you'll be promoted to panelists. We ask you to unmute yourself and state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. The first speaker will be Christina Conroy.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society. Now, the Victorian Society always appreciates applicants' efforts to provide replacement windows where the dimension of the framing members are close to those of the historic windows. However, we must repeat our long-standing position that matching the operation of historic windows is just as important as matching the configuration, the details, and the finish. And this is especially so on the primary facades of individual landmarks where every alteration should follow the original architect's design as closely as possible. When the proposed sash at 158 Remsen are not in an open position, it will be obvious that they are not double-hung windows. The applicants should be required to provide double-hung sash on the primary Remsen Street facade. The historic Victorian Society has no objection to the transom window replacement the applicant is proposing for use on the 8th floor. These windows are shown on image 13 and are over 160 feet above the sidewalk. They're deeply recessed. The difference between a pivot window and a tilt-in window in this location will not be discernible. Thank you, Commissioners.
Anyone else joining us via Zoom who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. Seeing that, I'll note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 2 recommends approval.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Okay. Did you want to respond to the comments? I think.
Just to reiterate, we feel this is a modest change to allow for the adaptive reuse of this building.
Okay, thank you so much. Commissioner Jefferson, would you like to start this discussion?
I just note one thing quickly before that. Just with regard to the operation of these particular windows, simulated double hung high performance windows. These are actually something that the staff is able to review and approve on buildings in historic districts. And in this case, this is an individual landmark, so that's really the primary reason why it's in front of you here today. With regard to the materiality of these windows, calamine windows are actually called out as specifically not being special windows in our rules versus like a solid bronze or some other material, even though these do have the sheet metal brass on them. So it's really about the fact that the rules don't allow this. However, the commission has approved on a number of buildings these exact type of windows, including recently 95 Madison, as was pointed out, also the Flatiron Building and the upper portions of the Woolworth Building, among others.
Thank you. Okay. Actually, we're going to close the hearing. Commissioner Chu, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Kumbe, would you second that?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Jefferson, would you like to start this discussion? Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
Agreed. I mean, it's an unusual color for windows. I'm kind of interested to see how it looks. I think maybe the staff should take a look at it and maybe do a little mock-up. One doesn't normally see windows this particular color, but I think it certainly seems to be supported by the evidence shown in the presentation. I would just ask the staff, pictures can maybe not be totally representative, and you'd hate to make a mistake at that scale.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan?
Thank you. Yeah, I, of course, support the adaptive reuse of this building. That's a very important activity for preservation. I would note, perhaps the energy and acoustical performance for the windows is perhaps the most important rationale. I'm not so sure, ADA compliance requires this different operation in and of itself. I know of a small building where we changed over 5,000 of them successfully that are ADA compliant. Nonetheless, I think this is very carefully done. The dimensions are very close to the original. I think you should have gone through them. They are very, very close. I'm okay with the change in operation and materiality, to modernize the windows and have them have that performance that you need. I don't pretend to be able to evaluate the color of the material sample given us relative to what's, on my screen or the screen here. It does look a little dark compared to the screen, but I don't trust that color rendition. So ask the staff to just look at that together with the applicant, which I'm sure they do anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ginsburg.
So I agree with my fellow commissioners, it's appropriate. I want to address for a second the Victorian Society's testimony. I appreciate their comment on operation. We have a case here of competing goods. Double hung windows by their very nature leak a lot. And people, when they talk about energy efficiency, often talk about insulator value, but as important is our air changes within a building, because every time the air changes through a building, in the winter you have to heat it, in the summer you have to cool it. So that I think, given the competing issues, that what the what the applicant is proposing and what we've accepted in the past of a difference in operation is appropriate, because climate change and carbon footprint are, I think, existential issues, and we really need to, in part to preserve our historic buildings, try to limit the carbon footprint of our buildings.
Thank you. Does anybody feel any differently? Okay, so we're going to move on. Commissioner Jefferson, would you like to read that motion?
Application is to replace windows. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed replacement of historic brass-clad wood double-hung and pivot windows at the primary facade and the monumental arch windows at the courtyard facade will continue to facilitate the adaptive reuse of the historic office building for residential purposes. That the proposed aluminum replacement windows will match the historic in terms of configuration, will closely recall the historic details and materials, and the reddish brown color of the windows is based on an historic finish analysis. That the change in operation, the double hung windows to in-swinging hoppers or casement will accommodate accessibility, energy performance, and other code requirements, and will only be perceptible when the sash is open. That the glazing in the upper sash will be in different planes from the glazing in the lower sash, and will recall the appearance of the historic offset window sashes. That the changes in operation of the pivot windows, the hopper windows, will be called the horizontal orientation of the historic pivot operation, and that the proposed work will not detract from the significant historic or architectural features of this individual landmark.
Thank you, and that the applicant will continue to work with staff to refine the details. Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. John, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu, Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum. Aye. Commissioner Quimby,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson. Aye. Commissioner Mahan,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
8 in favor, none opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you. That's been approved. Now for the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 3, LPC 25-11473, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 1159, Lot 39, 302 Prospect Place in the Prospect Heights Historic District. This is a Romanesque Revival-style row house with Renaissance Revival-style elements designed by Dahlander and Hedman and built circa 1896. The application is to construct rooftop and rear yard additions.
Hi, I am Rustam Mehta from GRT Architects in Brooklyn, presenting work to 302 Prospect Place. This is a building that is towards the edge of the Prospect Heights Historic District. It is a 2-story plus basement building. The work we're proposing is a rooftop and rear addition. There's no other work to any of the existing portions of the building. These are photos from the street. Worth noting in the plot map, I'll mention this when we look at the photos of the rear yard is in a bit of a valley, so to speak, in the interior of the block, with number 300 being quite deep and number 306 being quite deep. We have unconditional letters of support I'm happy to read from number 304 and number 300, and I'll point out some changes we made after presenting twice to the local community board. Number 300 is a building that was built, I believe, before designation. It's quite deep. Our rear yard addition will not be as deep as this building. And then the neighbor over here is building a small addition. We've coordinated with their architect. That was approved by Landmarks, their work. And then we'll show you what we're proposing. In a very schematic sense, there is a rear yard and a rooftop addition. We tried to make both as small as possible. They're much smaller than the zoning envelope. This addition on the rear is shy of number 300. And it's just proud of, this is depicting the approved addition, a kind of seasonal porch for the neighbor to the east. We lowered the rooftop addition after meeting with the community board, and I'll explain that in a little more detail. We were asked to be as succinct as possible, so I won't speak to these sightline diagrams, besides to point out that the only visibility is the FDNY required rooftop ladder. It's 42-inch extension handrail is the only portion that's visible. We had originally tried, in the name of not demolishing the existing roof and cost efficiency, tried to leave the existing roof and keep the addition higher. After meeting with the community board, we brought the addition as low as it can possibly be, so it's in the plane of the existing ceiling. We have a code minimum ceiling, and we've chamfered the street face. And all of that has resulted in no visibility from the street besides the ladder I mentioned. We've also stepped back from the rear facade. There are a reasonable number of rear additions. There are a handful of rooftop additions that are approved that we'll show you. I can go into this in more detail if requested, but I'll go relatively quickly through our slides. Number 256 was approved by Landmarks and is constructed. I believe it's possibly more impactful than what we're doing for having an occupiable roof deck on 2 levels on the rear. We have no occupiable roof decks on the rear. I believe the expression of glass is more contemporary, more obvious on this structure. This structure, I believe, has got stucco cladding on all levels. We too, in the interest of keeping the addition relatively quiet for a small building, have used similar cladding on all 3 levels. We've documented no visibility through the only break in the street. As I mentioned, we kept this as small as possible. This is a house for a growing family. They needed a space for hosting events, so we made what I think is probably the smallest dining room addition we could, which again is less deep than the zoning would have allowed. No other change to the interior of the building besides where the it's opened up to this rear yard addition. Not an occupiable low roof, just the the DOB required sustainable roof. The top is a bedroom suite. Again, I believe we kept things a reasonably small size. We've stepped back from the rear facade. There is an occupiable roof deck here, but it is not visible. We kept glazing to a minimum. This is north facing. It wasn't really required, so we just have a glazed swinging door is the only glazing facing the street side. The existing building is painted brick. We're proposing the addition in similar but not identical painted brick. I believe that the simple detailing and the fenestration makes it clear this is an addition. But I think because of this kind of like very intense contemporary building on one side and the precedent on the block, we did not want to change materials that felt a little bit too loud or dissonant for a building of this size. And we thought that the fenestration and using painted brick again was the most kind of harmonious path. But we don't have a cornice, we don't have elaborate or arched lintels, and I think the mode of fenestration is clearly contemporary. Simple painted aluminum windows painted in a similar charcoal color to the existing windows to which there is no work. An elevation from the rear. This is a rendered elevation facing the street. So as I mentioned, we've chamfered the roof. That's in standing seam. Again, painted brick on the facade, a minimum of glazing, and this hoop of the ladder is the only thing visible you'll see in our mock-up. We have mechanical equipment that is screened to meet the zoning resolution, which is not visible. We have stucco finish on the party wall. We've coordinated access, or we are working on access agreements with both neighbors, which will be in place before construction starts. As I mentioned, we have unconditional letters of support from both neighbors. Photos of the existing roof. Photos of the mock-up. So the mock-up was built at the height we had originally wanted to build, which would be on top of the roof. After the community board meeting, we modified the mock-up with tape to indicate where it would be sunk into, both because we chamfered the roof, you can see the angle here, and because we sunk the entire addition down into the plane of the existing roof. And then we photographed that, documenting. So this is, augmented photos pointing out where the tape is. But this mock-up is in place and able to be viewed. We photographed it, and the only visibility we found, there's a significant slope to Prospect Place. Technically speaking, I think you're just outside of the actual historic district when you can, where the visibility is from. It is only the rungs of the ladder. So to point out again here, the studs you see here are from the old mock-up. You cannot see the new mock-up, which is in red tape. We highlighted in red those two rungs of the ladder, just painted charcoal, are the only visibility. And there is no visibility because as the street goes to the west, it goes significantly downhill. So it is only across the street at this intersection that you get that. So any other portion of the street is nothing, and there's only the ladder rungs from that one standpoint. This is kind of a rendered version of that, so it's barely visible, which I believe is true to life. You can just see the hoop of the ladder rungs. And we noted other instances where ancillary rooftop elements are visible. So there is some ductwork visible on number 300. And this is a map where other such add-ons, such as roof vents, satellite dishes, and the like, are visible. I believe all of these are significantly more impactful than the 1.25 inch pipe rail of the FDNY required ladder. So that's the end of our presentation. We had some auxiliary slides we could go back to, but that's as quick as I can summarize it.
Great, thank you so much. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Okay, no questions. Is there anybody in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, let me turn it over to Stephen Thompson for remote testimony.
Those joining us via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. Our first speaker will be Mary Shuford. You'll be promoted to panelist, after which we ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Ms. Shuford, you're welcome to begin.
Hello, my name is Mary Shuford, and I represent Prospect Heights Neighborhood Development Council. We had initially, along with Community Board, expressed concern about the visibility of the rooftop addition to this building. We very much appreciate the applicant's efforts to address this concern. We have been concerned because, as the applicant referred to, there are a number of rooftop, if not not necessarily additions, but things on the rooftop that are visible. And there have been several applications in the past year with rooftop additions that are visible from the public thoroughfare. So we are completely appreciative of this applicant's efforts to revise their application so that their addition is not visible. We also had no objection to the addition in the rear yard, and with the changes to the rooftop addition, PHNDC happily supports this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else joining us via Zoom who wishes to speak, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 8 recommends approval.
Great, thank you. I think that the testimony was supportive. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Okay, so let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Wilder, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So move.
Commissioner Kimbe, would you second that?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Mayen, would you like to start this discussion?
Sure. Thank you for the very thorough and careful presentation, and thank you for all the effort that you've gone to make this appropriate, to reduce its visibility, to distinguish it from the existing building. I thought that it was quite carefully handled, and I can find it appropriate. There's, for all intents and purposes, no visibility whatsoever. The original massing is still recognizable. The additions are modest given the context, immediate and even a bit further afield. The existing color is white, so you're keeping it white. I might note I did see the specific color called out. Not all whites are created equal. I'm an architect too. I've used that one. It's very, very bright. So you might think about that a little bit for yourself. I think that's the color I use for the ceiling when I want it to be as bright as humanly possible. I give that some thought, but I find it appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
I agree with my fellow commissioner. I find it appropriate and note that they have really worked with the community to address their concerns.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilder?
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate their attention to detail and a lot of their decision making, so I find it appropriate.
Does anybody have any other thoughts? Okay.
I just echo Frank's comment about the white, just to make sure that it's not too bright.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sounds good. Seems like everybody's in agreement. Commissioner Mann, would you make that motion?
I will be happy to. In the matter of LPC 25-11473, 302 Prospect Place, Prospect Heights Historic District, a Romanesque Revival style row house with Renaissance Revival style elements designed by Dollander and Hedman and built circa 1896. Application is to construct rooftop and rear yard additions. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the proposed rooftop addition will be set back from the primary and rear elevations, thereby maintaining a sense of the building's historic volume, that only the latter extension at the rooftop addition will be visible from a public thoroughfare and will be seen in the context of neighboring rooftop mechanical equipment, and therefore will not draw undue attention to itself, that other rear yard and rooftop additions of this scale exist on buildings in the block, and the rear yard addition will align with the depth of the existing neighboring addition and will not further diminish the central green space, that the proposed rear addition will not extend the full height of the facade, and the original plane and fenestration of the top floor will be retained, thereby maintaining the house's historic relationship with other buildings in the row. That the contemporary design of the additions featuring white thin brick and stucco cladding and punched openings with black single light doors will be harmonious with the residential character of the building and the surrounding context, and that the cumulative effect of the added volume of the rear addition combined with the proposed rooftop addition will not overwhelm the building or detract from the adjacent buildings. And finally, that the applicant work with staff on final selection of the particular white paint color.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that?
Second.
Thank you. And Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu, Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Ikwembe, Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
8 in favor and none opposed. The motion passes.
Okay, that's been approved. Thank you. Okay, so that concludes our morning session. We're going to break for lunch. We're about 30 minutes behind, so we will start promptly at 1 o'clock. And to resume our afternoon session, we ask all members of the public and on Zoom to voluntarily exit at this time so that you don't experience technical difficulties returning in the afternoon session that may arise if we have to remove you. Thank you.